What if the past we thought we knew was only a fraction of the truth? Across the globe, hidden in the sands of deserts, buried beneath ancient cities and etched into stone, lie artifacts and structures that defy explanation, objects so precise, so advanced, that they challenge everything we understand about history. Eyes carved from crystal, massive temples aligned with the stars, tablets inscribed with scripts no one can read, remnants of civilizations whose knowledge seems impossibly sophisticated for their time. How did these people move colossal stones without modern machinery? Why were certain objects created with such intricate detail that even today's experts struggle to replicate them? Are they the product of forgotten ingenuity, or evidence of something far stranger lurking in the shadows of our collective memory? Tonight, we step into the shadows of the ancient world, peeling back the layers of time to examine mysteries that shouldn't exist, artifacts that provoke wonder, and enigmas that demand answers. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the unexplained, into the world where history meets the impossible. In the scorched plains of southeastern Iran, where the wind sweeps relentlessly across an endless horizon of ochre and sand, lie the ruins of Shahr-e Sukhteh, the burnt city. This Bronze Age settlement, abandoned over 4,000 years ago, stretches across a vast area, revealing the remnants of streets, dwellings, and cemeteries that speak to a civilization both advanced and enigmatic. Amidst the dust and fractured clay of this ancient metropolis, one artifact stands apart. A small, hollow eye made of bitumen and carefully inlaid with a polished crystal, held together with gold. At barely an inch in height, it might seem insignificant, yet its presence raises questions that historians and archaeologists still grapple with today. The artificial eye was discovered in a burial, fitted with precision into a socket of what is believed to have been a wooden skull. Its craftsmanship is extraordinary. The iris, finely shaped, catches the light. The curve of the eyelid seems almost lifelike. Even by modern standards, producing such a realistic ocular prosthetic would require meticulous skill. Some researchers argue that it is the oldest known prosthetic in the world, a testament to a society that understood not only the mechanics of the human body, but also the social and psychological impact of appearance and identity. But how did they achieve such precision? Modern replicas have demonstrated that creating this eye is far from simple. The tiny hollow cavity, the perfect curvature of the crystal, the gold inlays, they suggest a level of knowledge about optics and anatomy that seems surprisingly sophisticated for a city that existed around 3100 BCE. What tools could they have used? What techniques allowed them to shape crystal into a smooth, perfectly rounded iris? And why does it seem to mirror so accurately the depth and structure of a human eye? Some explanations are pragmatic. Scholars suggest it was an attempt at functional prosthesis, designed to restore vision or at least the semblance of it. Perhaps the person it belonged to lost an eye and required a replacement to participate fully in society, to maintain their status, or to fulfill ritualistic needs after death. In a world where survival was harsh and diseases often fatal, preserving physical wholeness may have carried both practical and spiritual significance. After all, the burial contained not just the eye, but other grave goods, ornaments, tools, and pottery, signaling that this individual may have held a special place in Shahr-e Sukhteh society. Yet, as one delves deeper, the questions multiply. Could this object have served more than a practical or symbolic purpose? Its lifelike precision hints at an awareness of human perception and aesthetics that seems almost uncanny for the era. Some researchers speculate that it may have had ritual or even mystical significance, perhaps used in ceremonies to confer protection or to honor the deceased. Was it purely ornamental, intended to impress the living with the skill of the artisan? Or did it serve a deeper function, one lost to time, known only to those who lived in this city thousands of years ago? Shahr-e Sukhteh itself is a city of mysteries. Excavations have uncovered elaborate urban planning, advanced water management systems, and intricate crafts, suggesting a society capable of remarkable innovation. And yet, despite the evidence of sophistication, the artificial eye remains unique. No other prosthetic of comparable craftsmanship has been found from this period anywhere in the world. It stands alone, an isolated whisper from a forgotten civilization. Its existence challenges the assumption that technological and medical advances followed a simple linear path through human history. As we consider this artifact, one cannot help but wonder about the hands that made it. Who was the craftsman who shaped this tiny crystal with such care, and for whom was it intended? Did they understand the symbolism that the eye would carry across millennia? Or was it simply the culmination of skill and necessity? And beyond that, what does it tell us about the people of Shahr-e Sukhteh, their understanding of the human body, their value of aesthetic precision, and their contemplation of life, death, and what lies beyond? In the end, the artificial eye of Shahr-e Sukhteh does not offer easy answers. It does not yield to straightforward interpretation or fit neatly into our understanding of early human history. Instead, it invites us to pause and reflect on the ingenuity and creativity of our ancestors, on the limits of what we know, and on the countless mysteries that remain buried beneath the sands of time. Each glint of gold and crystal seems to whisper a question that echoes across 4 millennia. How much of human history, skill, and knowledge remains hidden, waiting to be discovered, understood, and marveled at? From the arid plains of southeastern Iran, we now journey across the Aegean Sea to the rugged hills of Crete, where the story of human ingenuity and mystery continues in a form quite unlike anything that came before. Nestled in the limestone caves near the small town of Arkalochori, a discovery was made in the late 20th century that would confound archaeologists and enthusiasts alike. A bronze double-headed axe adorned with cryptic symbols, lying in the quiet darkness of a cave that had long been sacred to those who once called this island home. The Arkalochori Axe, or labrys, is not simply a tool. It is a ceremonial object, a relic of a society whose symbolism and rituals are only partially understood. The axe's 2 symmetrical blades gleam with a muted, almost otherworldly brilliance, even after millennia of burial. Each edge is meticulously crafted, balanced with a precision that suggests careful calculation and considerable skill. But it is not the craftsmanship alone that captures attention. It is the series of enigmatic inscriptions carved along the handle and central section of the axe, a sequence of symbols that appears intentionally ordered, yet stubbornly resistant to interpretation. Excavations in the Arkalochori cave revealed dozens of such axes, though none matched the singular design and inscription of this particular piece. The context of their discovery only deepens the intrigue. The cave had been a place of ritual offerings, echoing the patterns of sacred spaces throughout the Minoan world. Scholars suggest that the axes were votive gifts, presented to deities in hopes of favor, protection, or harvest blessings. Yet the inscriptions remain largely undeciphered. Some argue they are purely decorative or symbolic. Others see echoes of a forgotten writing system, a proto-script that has vanished into the sands of time. The sheer technical achievement of the axe raises further questions. Bronze casting in the Minoan era was sophisticated, but creating a symmetrical, double-headed axe of this size, complete with detailed inscriptions, requires advanced metallurgical knowledge. How did artisans achieve such uniformity and precision without the aid of modern measuring tools? What processes allowed them to cast, carve, and polish this object to a standard that still impresses modern experts? And why devote such effort to an item that, by all accounts, was never intended for practical use? The symbolic nature of the labrys itself invites speculation. In Minoan culture, the double-headed axe has long been associated with ritual and religious significance, often appearing in frescoes and other depictions of ceremonial life. Could the inscriptions represent prayers, chants, or coded instructions for rituals? Some researchers propose that the symbols may be a form of proto-writing, a system of communication lost to time, hinting at a society more literate and interconnected than previously imagined. Others cautiously suggest connections to broader Mediterranean symbolic traditions, noting similarities with Anatolian and Near Eastern iconography. Yet as we examine the axe closely, questions emerge that challenge conventional understanding. The artifact seems to embody knowledge and intention that stretches beyond simple ritual. The alignment of the inscriptions, the symmetry of the blades, and the care with which each detail was executed suggest a consciousness attuned to aesthetics, mathematics, and perhaps even the metaphysical. Could these axes have been more than ceremonial? Some fringe theories, cautiously entertained in academic circles, propose that such objects may have been used as astronomical markers or talismans imbued with specific symbolic power. While these ideas remain speculative, they reflect the enduring human fascination with artifacts that blur the line between practical function and spiritual significance. Adding to the enigma is the cave itself. Arkalochori. Cave is not a natural formation alone. It bears evidence of careful modification. Spaces carved intentionally to house offerings, niches designed to display objects in particular ways. The interplay between the axes and their environment, the light that would filter in at specific angles, the acoustics of chanting within the chambers, suggests a society with an acute awareness of ritual space and sensory experience. How much of the laborous's meaning depended on context, on placement, and on participation in ceremonial acts now lost to history? Even the broader historical backdrop of Crete invites reflection. The Minoan civilization, flourishing over 3,000 years ago, was remarkable in its urban planning, artistry, and trade networks. Yet many aspects of its society remain opaque. The Arkalochori Axe sits at the intersection of what we know and what we can only surmise. It embodies both technological mastery and a narrative that the written record cannot fully capture. The deeper we study it, the more the artifact resists easy categorization, remaining an eloquent testimony to human creativity and mystery. As we hold the image of the axe in our minds, we are confronted with the enduring tension between what can be explained and what remains hidden. Was it a tool of the divine, a vessel of forgotten knowledge, or simply an artistic expression of power and faith? Each possibility invites more questions than answers, a reminder that the past is not merely a sequence of events, but a landscape of lived experience, belief, and aspiration. In this quiet contemplation, the Arkalochori Axe becomes more than bronze and inscriptions. It is a bridge across time, a whisper from those who carved, cast, and revered it. Its existence hints at knowledge, ritual, and intention lost to history, challenging us to imagine the world as it once was, in ways both familiar and astonishingly alien. And as we step back from the cave, leaving its shadows behind, we are left with a simple, profound question. How many other objects, hidden in the crevices of the ancient world, hold secrets that we have yet to comprehend? From the shadowed chambers of Crete, our journey moves inland, to the fertile plains and ancient settlements of Mesopotamia, a land often called the cradle of civilization. Here, amid the ruins of cities that thrived thousands of years ago, we encounter objects that speak not only to the practicalities of early urban life, but also to the complexities of human imagination and expression. Among these artifacts are the Khafajah cylinder seals, small cylindrical stones meticulously carved with intricate scenes, known collectively as the Khafajah glyptic style. At first glance, they may appear modest, even utilitarian, objects designed to roll impressions into clay, marking ownership, sealing goods, or authenticating documents. Yet the level of detail, precision, and symbolism they embody reveals a world far richer and more enigmatic than mere record-keeping. Khafajah, a site in modern-day Iraq, was once a thriving city of the old Babylonian period, its streets filled with merchants, craftsmen, and scribes. It was here, buried beneath layers of centuries, that archaeologists uncovered these cylinder seals, some barely 2 inches in length yet carved with astonishing artistry. Each seal is a miniature tableau depicting gods and humans, mythic beasts, sacred symbols, and scenes of ritual or daily life. The grooves and lines are so finely executed that even under magnification, the craftsmanship seems extraordinary, as if the artisan had an intimate understanding of anatomy, perspective, and storytelling, compressed into the narrow circumference of a stone cylinder. As we examine these objects more closely, we begin to appreciate their dual nature. Functionally, they served as signatures. Rolling a seal across wet clay left a raised impression, marking property, securing containers, or formalizing agreements. But beyond this practical role lies something less tangible, an encoded language of images. Some of the scenes defy immediate interpretation, depicting figures or combinations of symbols that appear once and never again in the historical record. Scholars have painstakingly cataloged these motifs, yet many remain unexplained. Are they purely decorative, or do they convey a system of meaning that modern researchers have yet to decode? Could they represent ritual knowledge, mythological narratives, or even early attempts at symbolic communication that transcend words? The Khafajah glyptic style is notable for its distinctive artistry. Figures are rendered with fluidity and motion rarely seen in contemporary artifacts, with detailed musculature, elaborate garments, and intricate patterns on animals and mythic creatures. One seal might depict a lion with wings, leaping toward a deity, while another shows a human figure entwined with serpentine forms in a pose that suggests both struggle and reverence. The scenes are often compacted into a narrow space, yet the sense of depth and movement is remarkable. How did these artisans, with tools far simpler than our modern instruments, achieve such refinement? What guided their hands to create miniature worlds that feel complete, expressive, and intentional? Some explanations are conventional. The seals were a necessary part of administrative life, a form of identity and control in a burgeoning bureaucratic society. Mesopotamia was home to some of the earliest urban centers, where property rights, trade, and governance demanded authentication, and cylinder seals filled that role. Their utility is clear. Yet, the craftsmanship, choice of motifs, and occasional repetition of enigmatic symbols suggest another layer of purpose. Were these objects merely functional, or were they also a medium of storytelling, belief, and coded information, accessible only to those trained to read them? Could they contain hidden meanings, ritualistic significance, or even proto-writing systems lost to the passage of time? One of the more compelling aspects of the Khafajah seals is the apparent universality of certain symbols, which appear to echo motifs found across Mesopotamia and beyond. Winged animals, composite creatures, and divine figures recur in ways that hint at shared cosmologies or widespread symbolic languages. Yet the precise meaning of these images remains elusive. Were they intended to invoke divine protection, assert social status, or transmit esoteric knowledge? Or were they artistic experiments, expressions of imagination and skill, capturing a world in microcosm for the rolling touch of a hand? Consider the process of their creation. Each seal required careful selection of stone, an intimate understanding of negative space, and precise engraving so that the design would emerge correctly when rolled onto clay. One misstep could render the seal useless, its intricate story lost in a smeared impression. The level of patience, skill, and foresight involved is staggering. What inspired such devotion to miniature imagery? Was it simply the necessity of administrative precision, or was there a cultural reverence for the interplay between function and artistry that we can barely comprehend today? Even as we trace the patterns and decipher the scenes, a profound mystery persists. How much of the meaning of these seals is lost to us forever? Unlike textual cuneiform, which can be read and translated, these pictorial narratives rely on cultural knowledge that has not survived. Some motifs may have had layers of interpretation, known only to priests, officials, or the elite, leaving modern scholars to speculate. Others may be purely symbolic, representing abstract concepts or spiritual ideas that had no direct linguistic equivalent. In either case, the seals are more than artifacts. They are vessels of a worldview, glimpses into the imagination and values of a people whose voices we cannot fully hear. As we leave the Khafajah seals for a moment, rolling the images in our minds as they would have rolled across clay thousands of years ago, we are left with a quiet sense of awe. These small objects, designed for everyday bureaucratic life, hold worlds of complexity within them, merging practicality with artistry, function with mystery. They remind us that even in societies that left behind monumental structures, vast temples, and thriving cities, it is often the smallest artifacts that carry the deepest enigmas. And so, the Khafajah cylinder seals remain an open question, a testament to human ingenuity, imagination, and perhaps to knowledge that has slipped through the cracks of history. What did these miniature worlds mean to those who made them? What messages, prayers, or stories lie hidden within their grooves, waiting to be understood? As we continue our exploration of artifacts that challenge conventional understanding, the seals stand as a quiet, enduring reminder. The past is never fully written, and some mysteries, no matter how small, are profound beyond measure. Leaving the intricate impressions of Khafajah behind, our journey moves further into the Levant, to the plains of what is now modern-day Jordan. Here, in the fertile expanses surrounding the ancient settlement of Ain Ghazal, archaeologists uncovered a discovery that would challenge our understanding of early human expression and belief. A collection of life-sized plaster figures, some standing over 3 feet tall, their forms eerily human, yet somehow unlike anything we encounter today. The Ain Ghazal Statues, or plaster figures, emerge from the Neolithic world around 7000 BCE, a time when humans were transitioning from nomadic hunter-gatherer groups to settled agricultural societies. But the statues are not simply decorative or ceremonial. They seem to embody a deeper, almost haunting presence. The figures are crafted from a core of bundled reeds, covered with layers of plaster and painted with natural pigments. Their faces are minimalist, yet arresting. Hollow eyes, sharply defined noses, and occasionally faint traces of hair or clothing details. Some figures are complete, others are fragmented, their limbs broken or missing, yet their overall impression remains strikingly lifelike. The scale, the detail, and the deliberate care suggest that these were not casual creations. They were objects of significance, intended to endure, to be seen, perhaps even to participate in the spiritual or social life of the community. Ain Ghazal itself is a sprawling Neolithic settlement, remarkable in its urban layout, with rows of rectangular houses and evidence of carefully planned streets. It was here, buried in the soil of abandoned homes and ceremonial spaces, that archaeologists uncovered the statues, often in pairs, occasionally alone. The context of their discovery hints at ritual practice. Some were intentionally buried, their placement suggesting an act of reverence, mourning, or symbolic protection. But beyond the archaeological details, it is the figures themselves that provoke questions. Why were they created at all? What did they mean to the people who made them? And why invest such extraordinary effort into crafting representations of human forms in a society that left no written records to explain their purpose? Mainstream interpretations suggest that these figures were part of ancestral or fertility rituals, perhaps intended to embody spirits, honor the deceased, or invoke protection for the living. Their hollow eyes and stark faces could have represented the souls of those no longer among the living, or they might have served as guardians, watching over the settlement in ways unseen. Yet, even within these explanations, a sense of mystery lingers. The scale and quantity of the statues are unusual for the period. Dozens of figures were found, each uniquely formed yet conforming to a recognizable style, indicating both shared cultural understanding and individual artistic expression. How did these communities decide which traits to emphasize, which features to omit, and why were the figures painted in subtle, sometimes fading pigments? The craftsmanship is equally intriguing. Constructed from perishable materials and natural pigments, the statues were designed to endure, yet their creators worked with tools and techniques that required remarkable foresight and patience. The layering of plaster over reeds demands precision, ensuring stability while achieving the desired human form. Some statues display detailed shoulders, torsos, and even faint traces of arms, while others remain more abstract. What knowledge guided these artisans? Did they possess a symbolic vocabulary, a shared understanding of proportion, scale, and gesture that we can no longer decipher? Beyond their physical attributes, the statues evoke a profound psychological resonance. There is a subtle tension in their forms, a combination of realism and abstraction that makes them simultaneously familiar and unsettling. The hollow eyes, so often noted, seem to stare outward, engaging the viewer in a silent, timeless dialogue. Were these eyes intended to see for someone, to represent vision in the spiritual realm, or were they purely symbolic, a visual language now lost to history? Some scholars have suggested that the statues may also reflect early explorations of identity, community, and human representation. In a time when humans were forming permanent settlements and complex social structures, could these figures have served as embodiments of social roles, ancestral memory, or collective ideals? Might they have functioned as a bridge between the living and the dead, between individual and society, or even between humans and forces beyond comprehension? The absence of definitive explanations leaves the figures open to interpretation, a canvas on which questions, more than answers, are written. The burial of many figures adds another layer of intrigue. Some were carefully interred in pits, occasionally beneath house floors, suggesting ritual closure or intentional deposition. Others were found in fragmented states, as if deliberately broken before being placed in the ground. Were these acts symbolic, perhaps marking life transitions, seasons, or communal events? Or do they hint at a more enigmatic practice, one whose meaning has vanished over the millennia, leaving only the silent forms to witness our modern curiosity? In contemplating the Ain Ghazal statues, one cannot escape the sense that they were more than mere objects. They are echoes of a society grappling with human presence, mortality, and spiritual connection. They reflect an early understanding of representation, of what it means to capture the essence of a person, or perhaps something more elusive. The care, effort, and creativity involved in their production speak to a sophisticated worldview, one in which art, ritual, and social identity were deeply intertwined. As we leave the plains of Ain Ghazal, the figures linger in our imagination, their hollow eyes following us across time. What did they see? What did they know? And what stories did they carry into the soil that now holds them? How much of the human experience from 7,000 years ago remains encoded in their forms, just beyond our ability to read? The Ain Ghazal statues remain a quiet mystery. a testament to the enduring complexity of human creativity, belief, and memory. In their presence, we are reminded that some questions resist answers, inviting us instead to wonder, to reflect, and to consider what else might remain hidden, waiting to be discovered in the layers of time. From the plaster figures of Ain Ghazal, we journey westward across the Mediterranean to the windswept island of Gozo in Malta, where some of the oldest freestanding structures in the world rise from the rocky landscape. Here, amidst the massive megalithic blocks of the Ggantija temples, dating back to roughly 3,600 to 2,500 BCE, archaeologists have uncovered a remarkable set of artifacts, small, enigmatic figurines carved from limestone that offer glimpses into a Neolithic society whose beliefs and rituals remain largely hidden from us. These are the Ggantija Temple figurines, modest in size yet profound in their implications, standing as silent witnesses to a culture that shaped monumental temples with precision, yet left no written records to explain their purpose. The temples themselves are awe-inspiring. Massive stones, some weighing over 50 tons, are arranged with meticulous alignment, forming sanctuaries, corridors, and altars that suggest careful planning and deep ritual significance. Amid these architectural marvels, the figurines were discovered, compact, abstract representations of the human form, often emphasizing the female body. Broad hips, prominent torsos, and minimal facial detail characterize the figures, their sculptors perhaps intending to evoke fertility, abundance, or divine presence. Some figurines are worn and eroded, while others remain remarkably intact, preserving the shapes and textures that their creators painstakingly carved thousands of years ago. The craftsmanship of these objects is notable. Though small, they reveal a nuanced understanding of form and proportion. Each figure communicates through exaggeration. The features deemed most essential, often those associated with fertility or the life-giving aspects of the human body, are deliberately accentuated, while less critical details are omitted. What guided these choices? Were they symbolic shorthand, a visual language understood across generations? Or did they carry specific meanings known only to the priests, artisans, and worshippers who interacted with them in the sacred spaces of Ggantija? Mainstream interpretations suggest that these figurines were likely connected to fertility cults or maternal symbolism. The repeated emphasis on female characteristics has led scholars to posit that they represented a mother goddess figure, a source of life and prosperity for a community dependent on agriculture and animal husbandry. Yet, beyond this functional interpretation lies an enduring mystery. Why do these figures, while abundant in Ggantija, appear across Malta with such consistent yet abstracted forms, and yet vanish almost entirely in neighboring regions of the Mediterranean? What drove the specific stylization of these forms, and what aspects of human or divine experience were they intended to capture? The context of their discovery deepens the intrigue. Some figurines were found in temple altars, others in hidden recesses, suggesting a purposeful placement. They may have been offerings, objects of ritual devotion, or symbolic participants in ceremonies whose details are lost to time. The care with which they were shaped and positioned implies not just practical utility, but reverence, a tangible connection between the human and the sacred. And yet, despite the prevalence of the figures, their precise function remains speculative. Were they intended to channel spiritual energy, to embody deities, or to act as intercessors between the earthly and the divine? Or were they objects of meditation and contemplation, tools for the community to externalize its hopes, fears, and aspirations? The figurines also invite reflection on the society that produced them. Ggantija is remarkable not only for its megalithic architecture, but also for the sophisticated cultural awareness required to create such objects. The artisans who carved these figures must have possessed an intimate knowledge of limestone, tools, and carving techniques, combined with a keen sense of abstraction and symbolic expression. How was this knowledge transmitted? Were the sculptors part of a priestly caste, artisans trained through apprenticeship, or individuals guided by intuitive understanding of form and meaning? And what does their work reveal about the cognitive and spiritual sophistication of Neolithic Maltese society? Some researchers speculate that the figurines may have served a dual purpose, practical and symbolic. They could have been representations of deities for ritual use, while simultaneously functioning as objects of instruction or cultural continuity, teaching successive generations about fertility, lineage, or cosmological beliefs. Others have suggested more enigmatic interpretations, considering the figures as part of a broader metaphysical worldview, a tangible interface between human communities and forces beyond perception, a way to make abstract spiritual concepts manifest in physical form. Though these ideas are inherently speculative, they underscore the enduring fascination of the Ggantija figurines. They are objects that resist straightforward categorization, hovering between art, ritual, and mystery. Even the simplicity of the forms carries a quiet power. By omitting certain features while emphasizing others, the sculptors created objects that are universally recognizable, yet deeply enigmatic. They provoke questions about perception, identity, and the ways in which humans represent themselves and the divine. Why emphasize the torso, the hips, or the breasts, but leave the faces almost entirely featureless? Is this abstraction a deliberate choice to focus attention on what was spiritually or socially significant? Or is it a reflection of aesthetic norms and ritual practice lost to time? As we step back from the temple stones and hold these figurines in our imagination, their quiet presence lingers. They are small yet commanding, intimate yet timeless, artifacts that connect us to the thoughts, beliefs, and hands of people who lived over 5 millennia ago. They remind us that human creativity, spirituality, and ingenuity often precede our ability to fully understand them. In their silent forms, we sense both the sophistication of Neolithic Malta and the questions that remain unanswered. What beliefs, rituals, and stories inspired these figures? And what truths about human consciousness and culture might we never uncover? The Ggantija Temple figurines endure as tangible echoes of a civilization that shaped monumental stone, expressed abstracted humanity, and sought to bridge the tangible and the spiritual. They challenge our assumptions, inviting us to consider the depth of knowledge, artistry, and ritual awareness present in societies long before written history. And as we leave the ancient temples, the figures remain, watching over the landscape, compelling us to wonder, how many aspects of human creativity and belief have been lost, and what other mysteries might yet lie hidden, waiting to be revealed by those who dare to look closely. From the stone temples and figurines of Neolithic Malta, our journey carries us across continents to the lush, river-fed plains of Sichuan in southwestern China. Here, hidden for millennia beneath layers of sediment and loess, lay the ruins of a civilization so advanced yet so enigmatic that its discovery would rewrite much of what scholars thought they knew about early Chinese history. It was in 1929, and later more systematically in 1986, that archaeologists uncovered the treasure trove of Sanxingdui: bronze artifacts, jade, gold, and most strikingly, a series of enormous surreal masks that continue to challenge our understanding of Bronze Age culture. These are the Sanxingdui Masks, creations both monumental and otherworldly, each one an expression of human artistry that seems to defy explanation. The masks vary in size, some towering over 1/2 meter in height, with exaggerated features: wide, staring eyes, flared nostrils, protruding ears, and open mouths, conveying expressions that are at once commanding, enigmatic, and slightly unsettling. Cast in bronze with meticulous skill, they reveal not only technical mastery, but also a symbolic language that we cannot fully interpret. Unlike the figurines of Malta, which emphasize human fertility and form, the Sanxingdui Masks project power, presence, and perhaps the divine, embodying a cultural vision that is strikingly distinct from other known Bronze Age societies in China or elsewhere. The site of Sanxingdui itself adds layers of intrigue. The masks were discovered in pits, deliberately buried, along with countless other bronze items, including statues, vessels, and weapons. The manner of deposition suggests ritual intent, possibly an offering, a symbolic closure, or even a deliberate act to remove these objects from daily life, placing them instead into a sacred, perhaps ceremonial, liminal space. Who performed these burials, and why? What did the people of Sanxingdui hope to communicate, conceal, or preserve through these dramatic gestures? Mainstream archaeology offers several interpretations. Some scholars argue that the masks represent ancestral worship or depictions of deities, reflecting a complex religious system previously unknown in this region. Others suggest they were intended to intimidate or awe participants in ritual ceremonies, a visual language of power rendered in bronze. The exaggeration of facial features, particularly the eyes, may signify an ability to see beyond the human realm, to perceive spiritual forces, or to connect with supernatural entities. Yet despite decades of research, no textual records have been found to explain their purpose, leaving the masks suspended between function, symbolism, and mystery. The technological sophistication of the masks is equally remarkable. Casting large bronze objects with such precision requires advanced knowledge of metallurgy, mold-making, and alloy composition. Ancient Chinese artisans achieved feats here that rival or even surpass contemporary Bronze Age work elsewhere. How did they develop these techniques in apparent isolation? Were they part of a broader network of knowledge sharing? Or did Sanxingdui represent an entirely unique cultural experiment, flourishing for centuries before disappearing from history without a trace? Even the aesthetic choices provoke questions. The masks' wide, staring eyes and exaggerated facial proportions are unlike anything in the surrounding regions of the time. Did they reflect a specific spiritual or cosmological worldview? Were they meant to embody the presence of gods, ancestors, or mythic creatures? Some researchers speculate that these features were not merely symbolic, but may have been intended to provoke psychological or emotional responses, an early understanding of how visual representation could influence perception, awe, or reverence. The masks also invite contemplation about the society that produced them. Sanxingdui was clearly a sophisticated culture, with urban planning, advanced metallurgy, and complex ritual practices. Yet, much about its people remains invisible. Why did they abandon this site? And why are there no surviving texts to explain their beliefs? How did they conceive of identity, spirituality, and authority? And why did these masks, so central to their material culture, ultimately vanish from the historical record? The questions linger as persistently as the masks' open eyes, staring across millennia. Some fringe theories suggest more speculative possibilities, proposing that the surreal features of the masks indicate contact with unknown influences or even extraterrestrial inspiration. While these ideas are controversial and remain outside mainstream archaeology, they underscore the sense of strangeness and wonder that Sanxingdui evokes. The masks' otherworldly presence, combined with their technical sophistication and enigmatic context, makes them unlike any other Bronze Age discovery in the world. They are artifacts that compel us to confront the limits of our knowledge and the vast gaps in our understanding of early civilizations. Perhaps what makes the Sanxingdui Masks most compelling is their capacity to evoke imagination without demanding explanation. They are at once tangible and inscrutable, products of human hands that communicate power, ritual, and aesthetic vision, yet refuse to yield their full meaning. In their bronze forms, the artisans of Sanxingdui left a record not in words, but in expression, scale, and detail. An invitation to contemplate, to question, and to wonder. As we leave the river plains of Sichuan, the masks remain, silent sentinels of a vanished civilization, challenging us to reconcile what we know with what remains unfathomable. How much of human ingenuity and spiritual insight has been lost to time? What other forms, symbols, or creations lie hidden beneath the earth, waiting to expand our understanding of the past? The Sanxingdui Masks endure as a haunting reminder. Even in societies long disappeared, the human desire to create, to embody belief, and to communicate across generations persists, leaving traces that continue to intrigue, confound, and inspire us today. From the river plains of Sichuan and the enigmatic bronze visages of Sanxingdui, our journey takes us far across the Pacific Ocean to one of the most remote inhabited islands on Earth, Rapa Nui, better known as Easter Island. Here, amid the iconic moai statues that have long fascinated the world, a different kind of mystery awaits. Smaller, more subtle, yet equally perplexing. The Rongorongo Tablets, wooden artifacts inscribed with glyphs that have defied comprehension for centuries. While the moai dominate the landscape with their monumental presence, the tablets hold a quiet but profound enigma, a written record whose meaning remains tantalizingly out of reach, whispering secrets from a vanished past. The Rongorongo tablets are modest in size, carefully carved from wood, yet their surfaces are densely inscribed with intricate glyphs, stylized figures representing humans, animals, celestial symbols, and geometric shapes, arranged in precise sequences. The writing follows a unique format known as reverse boustrophodon, in which lines run alternately from left to right and right to left, requiring the reader to turn the tablet to continue reading. The level of craftsmanship and consistency across the glyphs suggests a highly developed system, one that was likely taught, learned, and reproduced over generations. Yet, remarkably, no one alive today can read it with certainty. Easter Island itself adds context to this enigma. Settled by Polynesian navigators over a millennium ago, the island is an isolated outpost surrounded by thousands of miles of open ocean. Its inhabitants developed a distinctive culture, leaving behind monumental moai, ceremonial platforms, and intricate petroglyphs. The Rongorongo tablets appear late in the historical record, possibly emerging around the 17th century, long after the moai were constructed. Their appearance raises immediate questions. Why did a society so remote develop a written script? And why did it seemingly disappear so quickly, leaving only a handful of surviving examples? Mainstream scholarship has long debated the function of the tablets. Some suggest they were mnemonic devices used to record genealogy, rituals, or calendrical information. Others propose that they were ceremonial in nature, containing sacred knowledge reserved for a priestly elite. Yet attempts to decode the glyphs using linguistic analysis, statistical methods, and comparative studies with Polynesian oral traditions have yielded little definitive understanding. Unlike other scripts, Rongorongo lacks clear correspondence with spoken language, leaving its precise meaning tantalizingly beyond reach. The tablets themselves are works of extraordinary skill. Each glyph is carefully incised with remarkable precision, following rhythmic patterns across the wood. Many symbols depict anthropomorphic figures with intricate headdresses, animals in motion, or abstract forms that seem to combine multiple elements into singular units. What guided these artisans' choices? Were the glyphs standardized across generations, or did each scribe innovate within an established tradition? The uniformity and complexity suggest a formalized system, yet the scarcity of surviving examples leaves us unable to reconstruct the full scope of knowledge embedded in the script. Beyond technical considerations, the Rongorongo glyphs provoke deeper questions about cultural transmission, literacy, and societal structure. How did a society so isolated from major continental centers develop such a sophisticated symbolic system? Could the glyphs encode stories, laws, or rituals that would reveal the spiritual and social fabric of Rapa Nui? Or do they represent an alternative form of knowledge entirely, one that blends practical record-keeping with ritual, cosmology, or ancestral veneration? The absence of bilingual texts or decipherable parallels has left these questions largely unanswered, highlighting the limits of our understanding. Some scholars have even speculated that the tablets could contain knowledge lost to time, astronomical observations, migration records, or mythological narratives now inaccessible due to the collapse of the island's complex society in the 18th century. Others suggest that the glyphs may have been deliberately esoteric, designed to safeguard sacred information, readable only by initiates trained in a specific oral and ritual tradition. While such ideas remain speculative, they underscore the sense of mystery surrounding the artifacts, objects that simultaneously reveal human ingenuity and conceal their meaning in plain sight. The materials of the tablets add another layer of intrigue. Carved from local wood, many have survived surprisingly well given Rapa Nui's humid climate, though others have deteriorated or been lost entirely. The preservation of these objects, along with the care evident in their craftsmanship, suggests they were highly valued, perhaps treated as sacred repositories of knowledge or objects imbued with protective or spiritual significance. How many tablets have been lost, and what truths might they have held? What insights about social structure, ritual, or environmental adaptation might we never recover? In contemplating the Rongorongo tablets, we are drawn into a dialogue across time. Each incised line, each recurring motif, hints at a culture capable of abstraction, memory, and symbolic thought on a scale that rivals other early writing systems. Yet, unlike cuneiform or hieroglyphics, Rongorongo refuses to yield its secrets, leaving only the impression of intelligence and intentionality. It is an artifact that embodies both human creativity and the profound mystery of cultural extinction, reminding us that knowledge, once lost, can echo silently for centuries. As we step back from the carved wood and imagine the hands that shaped these glyphs, we are left with a sense of awe and wonder. What did the people of Rapa Nui see, know, and seek to preserve through these enigmatic symbols? How did these tablets shape daily life, belief, or memory in a society now largely vanished? And perhaps most profoundly, what other forms of human knowledge, artistry, and insight have been lost, waiting silently beneath layers of time, soil, or ocean to challenge our understanding of the past? The Rongorongo tablets endure as one of the world's most enigmatic written artifacts, bridging human ingenuity, ritual practice, and mystery. In their silent grooves lie questions without answers, invitations to wonder, and reminders that some chapters of history remain tantalizingly unread, waiting for those who seek to uncover them. From the wooden glyphs of Rapa Nui, our journey sweeps across oceans and centuries to the mountainous peninsula of Korea, where the Silla kingdom flourished for nearly a millennium, from 57 BCE to 935 CE. In the tombs of Gyeongju, the ancient capital, archaeologists uncovered artifacts that are as opulent as they are mysterious. exquisite gold belts and ornaments, meticulously crafted with astonishing precision. These objects, now known as the Silla gold belt ornaments, are more than mere symbols of wealth or status. They are enigmatic testaments to a civilization that mastered metallurgy in ways that continue to puzzle modern researchers. The belts themselves are impressive in both scale and detail. Constructed from interlocking gold plates and adorned with delicate chains, animal motifs, and geometric patterns, they shimmer with a quiet elegance, reflecting light as though animated by the hands that shaped them over a millennium ago. Some are embellished with tiny gold charms, intricately patterned to represent mythical creatures, phoenixes and dragons, figures deeply embedded in the spiritual and cultural fabric of Silla society. Every curve, every linkage, demonstrates a mastery of technique and design that challenges assumptions about early metallurgy in East Asia. Silla goldsmiths achieved a level of sophistication that seems almost inconceivable for the time. The purity of the gold, the precision of the soldering, and the intricacy of the designs suggest tools and methods advanced enough to produce items whose complexity rivals that of much later periods. How were these artisans able to cast, shape, and join gold with such precision? What cultural and technological knowledge guided their hands, and how was this expertise transmitted across generations in a society with no surviving written instructions on metallurgical processes? The context of discovery adds layers of intrigue. Many of the belts were found in royal tombs, wrapped around the bodies of kings, queens, or high-ranking nobles, often alongside ceremonial weapons, jewelry, and other grave goods. These tombs, sealed and preserved beneath mounds of earth, served not only as resting places but as carefully curated displays of power, wealth, and spiritual symbolism. The belts, in particular, may have signified authority, status, or even divine favor. Yet, the precise meaning of many motifs remains elusive. Were the miniature chains symbolic representations of cosmic order, protective talismans, or purely decorative elements meant to awe the living and honor the dead? Some of the most striking features of these belts are the tiny, repeated patterns and delicate articulations. Certain ornaments are so finely detailed that replicating them today would require magnification and tools scarcely imagined by most ancient artisans. How did Silla goldsmiths achieve such precision with the tools available at the time? Did they rely on magnifying lenses, painstaking manual techniques, or perhaps methods now lost to history? The belts hint at a knowledge of both material properties and aesthetic principles that seems remarkably sophisticated. In addition to their technical mastery, the belts provoke questions about cultural exchange and influence. Some scholars note stylistic similarities with other East Asian artifacts, suggesting that Silla artisans may have drawn inspiration from neighboring regions, while simultaneously developing unique techniques and motifs. How much of the design was purely local innovation, and how much reflected broader currents of artistic and technological exchange across ancient Korea, China, and beyond? The combination of originality and apparent external influence complicates our understanding of Silla society, hinting at a culture deeply interconnected yet fiercely creative. Beyond questions of technique and influence, the belts carry an almost intangible aura, a sense that they were more than adornment. Their placement in tombs, their meticulous craftsmanship, and the symbolic richness of their motifs suggest that they were imbued with meaning, social, spiritual, and perhaps even cosmological. Did these objects serve as conduits for divine favor? Were they intended to guide the deceased into the afterlife, or to protect the living through ritual significance? And if so, what beliefs and narratives did these symbols encode now lost to the centuries? Some fringe interpretations have even suggested that certain patterns and arrangements on the belts reflect astronomical or cosmological knowledge, encoded symbolically rather than written. Could these tiny chains and repeated motifs be more than decorative flourishes? Might they have represented cycles of the heavens, seasonal markers, or ritual calendars? While speculative, such ideas underscore the sense of wonder that Silla goldwork evokes. Objects at once practical, ceremonial, and cryptically symbolic, crafted by hands whose knowledge we can glimpse but cannot fully reconstruct. Even today, these belts challenge modern understanding of metallurgy and artistry. Experimental reconstructions have demonstrated that creating these objects with comparable precision would be a painstaking process, demanding not only skill but extraordinary patience and intimate understanding of materials. Yet the Silla artisans achieved this routinely, suggesting a level of expertise, social organization, and cultural value placed on craftsmanship that modern observers can only marvel at. As we step back from the tombs of Gyeongju and the shimmering gold that has endured millennia, the Silla gold belt ornaments remain both tangible and mysterious. They are artifacts of wealth and power, yet also of knowledge, skill, and possibly hidden meaning. What did these belts signify to those who wore them? What technical secrets have been lost to time? And what cultural wisdom do they silently preserve? And most intriguingly, how many other artifacts, meticulously crafted and intentionally imbued with meaning, await discovery to challenge our understanding of human ingenuity? The Silla gold belt ornaments endure as a testament to human creativity, precision, and symbolic expression. In their delicate chains and patterned plates, we glimpse a civilization that mastered both material and imagination, leaving behind objects that continue to fascinate, perplex, and inspire. And as we reflect on their silent presence, we are reminded that even in societies well studied by historians, there remain mysteries that resist full explanation, hidden knowledge, lost techniques, and symbols whose meaning may never be fully understood, inviting us to wonder what else might yet be waiting to reveal the ingenuity of the past. From the golden treasures of ancient Korea, our journey returns to the Mediterranean, to the windswept island of Malta, where the Neolithic temple complex of Tarxien rises as a silent testament to human ingenuity, ritual, and artistry. Among its monumental stone structures, archaeologists discovered a series of finely carved panels, smaller, less celebrated than the massive megalithic blocks, yet no less compelling. These are the Tarxien temple reliefs, often referred to as the lesser panels, intricate carvings whose motifs offer glimpses into a prehistoric society whose beliefs, rituals, and artistic vision remain partially obscured by the mists of time. The Tarxien site, dating to around 3,150 to 2,500 BCE, is renowned for its massive stone altars, elaborately constructed facades, and complex layout of corridors and chambers. Yet amid these monumental features lie panels carved with astonishing precision, depictions of animals, abstract spirals, and interwoven patterns that seem both symbolic and decorative. Some panels portray domestic animals, such as cattle, with an almost lifelike quality, while others render geometric forms that defy easy interpretation. The scale of the reliefs may be modest compared to the temple itself, but their detail invites careful scrutiny, drawing the viewer into a dialogue with the hands and minds of artisans who lived 5,000 years ago. The craftsmanship is remarkable. The reliefs were carved directly into limestone, a medium both hard and unforgiving, requiring skill, patience, and precise planning. Every curve and indentation suggests deliberate intention. The spirals, for instance, recur across multiple panels and rooms, echoing patterns found elsewhere in Malta's prehistoric temples. What did these spirals signify? Were they symbolic representations of life, cycles of nature, or spiritual journeys? Or were they purely aesthetic, intended to inspire awe in those entering the sacred spaces. The lack of contemporary records leaves these questions unanswered, allowing the panels to maintain their enigmatic quality. Mainstream interpretations of the Tarxien reliefs often emphasize ritualistic and religious functions. The presence of altars and evidence of offerings suggests that these carvings played a role in ceremonial life. Some scholars propose that the animal depictions, particularly cattle, indicate the importance of domesticated animals in Neolithic society, perhaps even as sacred symbols of fertility, wealth, or divine favor. Yet, even within these interpretations, much remains unclear. Why were certain animals emphasized over others? Why are geometric and abstract forms interspersed alongside naturalistic imagery, sometimes occupying equal or greater prominence? Such juxtapositions hint at symbolic systems that may have guided social, spiritual, or agricultural life, systems now inaccessible to modern understanding. Beyond the practical or ritual, the panels provoke questions about cognitive and artistic development. The reliefs suggest an awareness of proportion, depth, and composition that seems advanced for their era. How did Neolithic artisans conceptualize these forms, and what cultural or spiritual knowledge informed their choices? Were the abstract patterns representations of metaphysical concepts, maps of the cosmos, or mnemonic devices to aid ritual memory? While definitive answers remain elusive, the intricacy of the carvings testifies to a society capable of symbolic thought and sophisticated artistic expression. The Tarxien reliefs also present intriguing anomalies. Some panels appear intentionally fragmented, their images incomplete or partially obscured, perhaps as a result of deliberate ritual modification, natural erosion, or unknown practices. Were these alterations symbolic, marking the passage of time, ritual completion, or cycles of renewal? Or might they reflect changes in belief or temple use over generations, with newer communities interacting with older sacred spaces in ways we cannot fully reconstruct? Each possibility deepens the sense of mystery, suggesting a living, evolving relationship between humans and their ritual environment. Some scholars have ventured more speculative interpretations. The abstract motifs, for instance, could encode knowledge or beliefs in a form of visual language, now unintelligible to us. Others have suggested that the panels may have served an educational purpose, guiding initiates through sacred knowledge or cosmological concepts encoded in shape, repetition, and placement. While these ideas cannot be verified, they highlight the layered complexity of Tarxien's artwork. Objects that exist simultaneously as aesthetic achievements, ritual tools, and potential repositories of lost knowledge. Even as we contemplate the reliefs themselves, the broader context of the temple looms. Tarxien is part of a network of megalithic complexes across Malta, including Hagar-Chim, Menajdra, and Ggantija. The repetition of motifs and stylistic choices suggests shared symbolic or ritual conventions, yet each site displays unique innovations and variations. What cultural forces drove this consistency, and what allowed for local experimentation? How did these communities transmit knowledge, beliefs, and artistic techniques across generations, without written language, in a period so remote from our own? The Tarxien reliefs, small in scale but profound in implication, remind us that human societies have long sought to encode meaning in form, pattern, and image. They challenge us to consider not only the technical abilities of Neolithic artisans, but also their intellectual and spiritual life. The spirals, animals, and abstract carvings are not merely decoration. They are fragments of a worldview, pieces of a symbolic language that may once have guided social cohesion, spiritual practice, or even the understanding of natural cycles. As we step back from the carved limestone, imagining the ceremonies and daily life of those who moved through Tarxien 5,000 years ago, we are left with an enduring sense of mystery. What did these panels mean to the people who created them? How much knowledge, ritual, or symbolic meaning has been lost to time? And how many other traces of human expression, equally sophisticated and enigmatic, lie buried, waiting to challenge our understanding of the past? The Tarxien temple reliefs endure as subtle yet compelling evidence of Neolithic ingenuity, spiritual awareness, and artistic sophistication. Their carefully carved forms invite reflection, awe, and speculation, reminding us that even in the distant past, humans sought to communicate, commemorate, and create meaning in ways that transcend the simple function of objects. They are a silent testament to a culture that once flourished, leaving us fragments that continue to intrigue, challenge, and inspire curiosity across the millennia. Leaving the carved stones of Malta behind, our journey takes us across the Atlantic to the high desert mesas of the American Southwest, to the heart of Chaco Canyon in what is now New Mexico. Here, among the ruins of a civilization that flourished between 900 and 1150 CE, lies Pueblo Bonito, the largest and most complex of the Chacoan great houses. Its walls, constructed from sandstone blocks and timber, form an architectural labyrinth of rooms, corridors, and ceremonial spaces. Hidden within this sprawling settlement are the Kivas, circular subterranean chambers that served as centers of ritual, community, and perhaps mystery. Among them, some stand out as anomalies, variants that differ from typical designs, defying conventional explanations and inviting us to reconsider the sophistication of Chacoan society. The kivas of Pueblo Bonito vary in size and design. Many are circular, with central fire pits, ventilation shafts, and benches lining the perimeter. Yet some of the smaller or variant kivas exhibit unusual features: unexpected wall niches, sunken floors of differing depth, or irregular dimensions that break with standardized architectural patterns. Certain kivas are carefully aligned to celestial events, their openings oriented to the winter solstice or lunar standstills. Others incorporate hidden entryways or irregularly spaced roof supports, suggesting functions beyond communal gathering. What purpose did these variant kivas serve, and why depart from the conventions observed elsewhere in the canyon? The scale and construction of Pueblo Bonito itself are staggering. The Great House contains more than 600 rooms, many stacked 4 stories high, a feat that required extensive knowledge of engineering, material sourcing, and labor organization. Within this context, the Kiva variants imply intentional deviation rather than error, a deliberate choice by architects or ritual leaders. Were these chambers reserved for elite ceremonies, specialized astronomical observation, or secret communal rites? Or did they serve as experimental spaces where builders and priests tested innovations in design, acoustics, or symbolic representation? Archaeological evidence provides tantalizing clues but no definitive answers. Some kivas contain remnants of ritual activity, ceramic vessels, carved stones, and traces of ceremonial fires. Certain variants display intricate carvings or pictographs along walls and floor surfaces, depicting abstract patterns, animals, or celestial motifs. Could these visual elements represent mythological narratives, cosmological principles, or coded instructions for ceremonial practice? And if so, why were these features restricted to only a subset of kivas, hidden in irregular corners of the Great House? The orientation of some variant kivas is particularly intriguing. Chacoan builders are known for their astronomical precision, and evidence suggests that certain chambers were aligned with solar, lunar, or stellar phenomena. Yet a few of the variant kivas defy expected patterns, angles that seem inconsistent with celestial events, or openings that point neither to horizon markers nor to solstices. Were these misalignments intentional, designed for specialized observations, or reflective of local rituals now forgotten? Could these chambers have functioned as sites for secret knowledge, accessible only to those trained in esoteric aspects of Chakuan cosmology. The construction of these chambers also raises technical questions. Many Kiva walls incorporate complex masonry, precise jointing, and timber beams expertly fitted to support roofs across wide spans. Some variants feature subtle differences in stone shaping or beam placement, hinting at experimentation with structural techniques or acoustical properties. Did these adjustments serve practical needs, or were they symbolic, encoding sacred principles into the very bones of the building? The craftsmanship suggests a society deeply attentive to both the material and metaphysical dimensions of space. Beyond architecture, the social implications of the variant Kivas are equally compelling. Chaco Canyon appears to have been a regional hub, drawing people from distant settlements to participate in ceremonial, economic, and possibly political activities. Certain kivas, particularly those deviating from standard design, may have functioned as exclusive spaces for ritual specialists or community leaders. Were these chambers arenas for elite knowledge, rites of passage, or encoded instructions for sustaining social cohesion across a dispersed population? The absence of written records leaves us speculating, relying on archaeological traces and the imagination to reconstruct the lives and beliefs of the Chacoans. Some researchers have even speculated on more unconventional possibilities. Could the unusual dimensions, orientations, or carvings of variant kivas indicate a knowledge of astronomy or geometry that exceeded what is commonly assumed for the period? Might they have been designed to manipulate light and shadow, sound, or perception, creating an environment that heightened spiritual experience? While these interpretations cannot be proven, they underscore the enduring sense of wonder and complexity that these structures inspire. The Kiva variants of Pueblo Bonito also invite reflection on human ingenuity and the persistence of mystery. These chambers, while hidden beneath layers of centuries, testify to the Chacoans' sophisticated understanding of space, materials, and ritual. They challenge assumptions about prehistoric North American societies, revealing a civilization capable of monumental architecture, precise astronomical alignment, and intentional design experimentation. And yet, for all we can observe, the full meaning and function of these spaces remain elusive, leaving them suspended between the tangible and the unknown. As we step back from the sun-bleached stones of Chaco Canyon, imagining the ceremonies, footsteps, and fires that once filled these chambers, we are confronted with a quiet but profound enigma. What knowledge, ritual practice, or social function was encoded in these variant kivas, and how much has been lost to time? How did the Chacoans envision space, structure, and symbolism, and what fragments of that vision persist today, waiting for discovery and interpretation? The Pueblo Bonito Kiva variants endure as subtle, enigmatic witnesses to a civilization that thrived in the desert, leaving traces of technical skill, ritual sophistication, and human ingenuity that continue to captivate scholars and observers alike. In their irregular walls, sunken floors, and carved motifs, we sense both intentionality and mystery, a reminder that even the smallest deviations from architectural norms can open a window into the imagination, spirituality, and intellect of a people long gone, but not forgotten. From the sun-baked desert of Chaco Canyon, our journey traces the arc of human ingenuity across the Mediterranean to the Ionian coast of Greece, where the ruins of the Kardaki Temple stand in quiet solitude. Nestled on the rocky slopes of Corfu, this Doric temple, dating roughly to the late 6th century BCE, is modest in scale compared to the monumental sanctuaries of mainland Greece, yet it possesses an enigmatic quality that continues to puzzle archaeologists and historians alike. Unlike the orderly, canonical structures of the classical era, Kardaki presents anomalies in design and construction that raise questions about the intentions and knowledge of its builders, suggesting a narrative of innovation, experimentation, and perhaps hidden purpose. The temple rises upon a gently sloping terrace, its limestone columns weathered by centuries of wind and sea spray. Unlike typical Doric temples, Kardaki lacks a central foundation stylobate aligned to a strict grid, and its platform exhibits subtle irregularities in measurement. Some columns are slightly off-center, while the spacing between others appears inconsistent, defying conventional rules of proportion. At first glance, these deviations might be dismissed as construction errors. Yet the consistency of certain patterns suggests deliberate choice rather than oversight. Could these irregularities reflect a localized adaptation to the terrain, or were they intended to convey symbolic meaning within the sacred architecture? The layout of Kardaki is itself intriguing. Archaeologists note that the temple's orientation deviates slightly from the east-west alignment typical of Doric sanctuaries, hinting at potential astronomical considerations. Might the temple have been designed to capture the rising sun at a particular moment of the year, or to align with other celestial phenomena? The possibility of intentional alignment evokes questions about the sophistication of Greek architects in the Archaic period, suggesting an awareness of geometry, observation, and cosmology that extends beyond conventional interpretations of Doric design. Construction techniques at Kardaki further underscore its enigmatic character. The columns, carved from local limestone, exhibit subtle variations in fluting and tapering, with certain details suggesting experimentation in load-bearing strategies. The temple platform incorporates a complex system of leveling stones and drainage channels, hinting at an understanding of both structural integrity and environmental adaptation. How did the builders achieve such precision with the tools available at the time, and what practical or symbolic considerations guided these choices? Could the anomalies in design reflect an attempt to integrate architecture with the natural landscape, creating a temple that resonates not only with human perception, but with the surrounding terrain itself? The decorative elements, though modest, invite reflection. Fragmentary traces of sculpted metops and cornices hint at motifs now lost to time, leaving only the barest outline of the temple's original aesthetic. Some scholars speculate that the understated ornamentation may have been deliberate, emphasizing form, proportion, or the interplay of light and shadow over narrative embellishment. Was the temple intended to evoke spiritual or psychological responses through subtle architectural cues rather than overt decoration? And if so, what principles or beliefs guided this restrained yet sophisticated expression? Kardaki's deviations from standard Doric norms have inspired more speculative interpretations. Some researchers suggest that the temple may have been constructed for a specialized ritual purpose, distinct from the communal or civic functions of typical Greek sanctuaries. Perhaps it was a space for elite initiates, for ceremonies requiring precise orientation or acoustics, or for observation of celestial events critical to agricultural or religious practice. Others consider the possibility that the temple represents an experimental phase in Greek architecture, a laboratory of sorts where builders tested new proportional formulas, column spacing, or structural innovations before applying them to larger temples elsewhere. The temple's historical context adds further layers of intrigue. Corfu was a site of intense cultural interaction, bridging Greek, Italic, and indigenous traditions. Kardaki may reflect the integration of these influences, combining Doric principles with local adaptations or innovations lost on the mainland. Could the irregularities in design be the product of cultural synthesis, a conscious blending of traditions aimed at creating a structure both familiar and unique? The notion that architecture itself can encode cultural exchange challenges our assumptions about the diffusion of ideas in the ancient world. Despite centuries of study, many questions remain unanswered. Why was Kardaki built on a slightly uneven terrace rather than a perfectly leveled foundation? What drove the subtle variations in column spacing and proportion? And perhaps most intriguingly, What purpose did these choices serve for the people who worshipped or observed within the temple? The answers elude us, leaving Kardaki as both a physical monument and an intellectual puzzle, a silent witness to human creativity, experimentation, and belief. As we step back from the weathered stones, imagining the priests, worshippers, and architects who once moved through its spaces, the temple evokes a quiet sense of wonder. Its irregularities invite reflection on the human capacity to combine practicality, observation, and symbolic intent, producing structures that endure not only as functional spaces, but as expressions of thought, knowledge, and cultural identity. What other secrets are encoded in these seemingly subtle architectural choices? What principles, rituals, or understandings of the world might have informed them? Knowledge that has now been partially lost to time? Kardaki Temple endures as a monument that challenges conventional definitions of architectural perfection, inviting us to see irregularity not as error but as possibility. It is a structure that speaks softly across the millennia, asking us to consider the intersection of human ingenuity, ritual practice, and environmental adaptation. And as we leave the Ionian coast behind, we are reminded that even in ancient Greece, where classical ideals dominate our imagination, there remain corners of mystery, spaces where human creativity and intention resist complete explanation, leaving questions that continue to stir curiosity and wonder. From the shadowed caves of southern India, our journey moves northwest to the fertile plains of the Indus River, where one of the world's earliest urban civilizations emerged nearly 5,000 years ago. Here, in the ruins of Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, and surrounding settlements, archaeologists uncovered thousands of small, meticulously carved seals, miniature tablets of mystery. These artifacts, known collectively as the Harappa seals or Indus minor glyphs, are tiny yet powerful witnesses to a civilization that achieved remarkable sophistication, yet left behind a script that continues to defy comprehension. The seals themselves are diminutive, often measuring only a few centimeters across, yet each carries exquisite detail. Carved from steatite, terracotta, or occasionally ivory, they feature inscriptions of symbols, animals, and abstract motifs arranged in neat sequences. Many depict composite creatures, bovines with human heads, or mythic animals engaged in enigmatic activities, alongside series of glyphs whose meaning is unknown. Some of the miniature scripts appear in linear arrangements, others in clusters, suggesting a level of standardization that implies a formal system of communication. And yet, despite decades of research, no definitive reading exists. These seals were not mere decoration. Archaeologists have found them in domestic contexts, as well as buried alongside the dead, suggesting they served multiple functions: markers of identity, tools for trade, and perhaps instruments of ritual or record-keeping. The recurring motifs of animals and abstract signs hint at symbolic or religious significance. Some scholars propose that the seals acted as a signature or personal identifier, a way to authenticate ownership or authority in a society without written contracts. But if this were the sole purpose, why are some seals so densely packed with glyphs? And why do the images sometimes appear fantastical or impossible, defying direct representation of the natural world? The precision of the carvings is striking. Despite their small size, each glyph is rendered with care, and repeated patterns across sites suggest standardization and a shared cultural lexicon. The seals indicate not only technical skill in miniature carving, but also a cognitive sophistication, the ability to conceptualize abstract symbols, represent identity, and convey meaning in compressed visual forms. How was this knowledge transmitted in a civilization without surviving decipherable texts? Were artisans trained in secret schools, Or did these methods pass from master to apprentice in tightly controlled workshops? One of the most perplexing aspects of the seals is the script itself. While some symbols appear frequently, others are rare or unique, creating a system that is neither alphabetic nor entirely pictographic. Attempts to decode the Indus script have relied on statistical analysis, comparisons with contemporary languages, and even computational modeling, yet no translation has produced a universally accepted result. Could these glyphs represent an early written language, a symbolic code, or a hybrid system combining multiple layers of meaning, practical, religious, and social? The absence of bilingual inscriptions, like a Rosetta Stone, leaves us with tantalizing glimpses of thought that cannot yet be read. The seals also reveal something about trade and connectivity. Many have been found far from their points of origin, suggesting they traveled along complex networks of commerce stretching across the Indus Valley and into Mesopotamia. Were the miniature scripts functional, conveying information across distances, or ceremonial, signifying trust, status, or spiritual protection during travel? The possibility that they encoded practical information alongside symbolic meaning highlights the sophistication of Harappan society, which remains only partially understood. Some of the images carved into these seals deepen the mystery. The composite creatures, hybrid animals, and abstract motifs appear almost dreamlike, existing somewhere between myth and reality. Were these depictions purely symbolic, communicating religious or cosmological ideas? Or did they serve as mnemonic devices, helping merchants, priests, or officials remember complex information about lineage, ritual, or trade? The precision and variety of these designs suggest a civilization capable of abstract thought, with conceptual frameworks that have left only tantalizing traces in miniature stone. Even their physical craftsmanship raises questions. Steatite, a relatively soft stone, was first shaped and then fired to harden, a process requiring careful control of heat and technique. The artisans were not only skilled in carving, but also understood the properties of their materials at a level that modern observers can appreciate. How were these techniques developed, standardized, and transmitted across such a widespread civilization? And what might the miniaturization of information tell us about the Indus mindset, their approach to knowledge, and the value they placed on portability, authority, or secrecy? Despite the passage of millennia, the Harappa seals continue to captivate scholars and lay observers alike. They are simultaneously concrete and elusive, tangible artifacts crafted with meticulous care, yet carrying messages that remain out of reach. Each seal invites us to imagine a bustling city of mud brick streets, marketplaces, workshops, and ritual spaces where knowledge was encoded in symbols, traded in miniature stone, and possibly spoken, sung, or otherwise preserved in ways that have not survived. As we step back from these tiny carvings, we are confronted by their paradox. Objects of extraordinary clarity and skill, yet whose meaning is profoundly inaccessible. What information, authority, or spiritual significance did these seals hold for their creators? How much of Harappan knowledge, governance, or ritual practice was embedded in these small stones, waiting to be deciphered? And how many other forms of human ingenuity, written, symbolic, or otherwise, have been lost entirely, leaving only fragments that challenge our understanding of the past? The Harappa seal miniature scripts endure as subtle yet profound witnesses to a civilization that mastered urban planning, trade, and artistry, yet deliberately or inadvertently concealed its written knowledge. In the tiny carvings of these seals, we glimpse the ingenuity, symbolism, and complexity of a culture that thrived in the Indus Valley, and we are reminded that even in a world increasingly illuminated by scholarship, some mysteries remain locked in stone, silent but compelling, inviting us to ponder what remains hidden beneath the layers of time. From the sun-baked stones of the Ionian coast, our journey turns to the dense, verdant forests of southern India, where the Cholanaikkkan hills rise in quiet isolation. Hidden amid thick foliage and jagged outcrops are caves that have long sheltered both human and animal life. Within these shadowed recesses, archaeologists have discovered symbols etched into the rock, petroglyphs whose origin, purpose, and meaning remain a profound mystery. These are the Cholanaikkkan cave symbols, ancient marks left by hands now lost to time, yet whose presence invites us to ponder the thoughts, rituals, and messages of early inhabitants in this remote landscape. The caves themselves are unassuming, narrow entrances leading to chambers that open gradually into spaces where light filters through cracks in the rock. Here, on rough stone surfaces, symbols are carved with deliberate precision, lines, spirals, dots, and abstract shapes that repeat and combine in ways that suggest intention rather than randomness. Some resemble animals, human forms, or natural elements. Others defy interpretation entirely. Worn by centuries of weathering, these marks endure, silently challenging our ability to fully understand them. Dating these petroglyphs is notoriously difficult. The Cholanaikkkan hills have seen continuous human habitation for millennia, and the caves may have served multiple purposes across generations: shelter, ceremonial space, or markers of territorial or spiritual significance. Mainstream archaeology often interprets such symbols as ritualistic or symbolic expressions of prehistoric communities, possibly related to hunting, fertility, or the natural world. Yet, the abstract complexity of some carvings exceeds what might be expected from purely utilitarian or symbolic marks. Could they encode knowledge, stories, or cosmological concepts once central to the culture of the region? The act of carving alone hints at a deliberate, contemplative process. Stone is unforgiving. Even a slight misjudgment can mar the intended design. The precision of the lines, the consistency of repeated motifs, and the positioning of the symbols within the cave suggest a ritualized approach, one combining manual skill with conceptual thought. Did the creators view the caves as sacred spaces, or as canvases for recording memory or knowledge? How did these marks interact with natural light, the contours of the rock, or the acoustics within the cavern? Every mark seems to occupy a considered space, a dialogue between human intention and geological form. Some symbols appear to echo natural phenomena. Spirals may represent celestial movement, rivers, or cycles of life and death. Dot patterns could signify counts, distances, or events. Yet many carvings remain stubbornly ambiguous, as though their meaning was intended only for those initiated into a particular cultural or ritual knowledge. The interplay between recognizable forms and abstract shapes creates an enigmatic visual language, hinting at sophistication, yet offering no Rosetta Stone for decoding. The Cholanaikkkan cave symbols also provoke questions about cultural continuity and isolation. The caves are located in a region that remained largely insulated from major urban centers for centuries. How did the people here develop such forms of expression in relative isolation? Were they part of a broader network of symbolic communication across southern India, or entirely unique to the hills and valleys surrounding these caves? Could the symbols be remnants of an unwritten language, a proto-script, or even a system of spiritual notation, preserved in stone long after the memory of its meaning faded? Some researchers have suggested that the placement of the symbols in deep recesses or hard-to-reach areas might indicate secrecy or initiation. Perhaps only certain members of the community, shamans, elders, or ritual specialists, were meant to encounter these marks, and their meanings were transmitted orally. Others speculate that the carvings could have functioned as territorial markers, guiding groups through dense forests or designating sites of resource significance. Yet these practical explanations do not fully account for the intricate patterns, repeated motifs, and deliberate arrangements observed across multiple caves. The age, context, and craftsmanship of the carvings also invite reflection on human cognition and creativity. The creators possessed not only technical skill, but the ability to conceptualize abstract ideas, represent them visually, and embed them within a spatial environment. They engaged in a dialogue with both the natural world and their community, leaving traces that echo across millennia. What cognitive or spiritual frameworks guided their choices, and how were these frameworks shared, taught, or ritualized? The Cholanaikkkan symbols hint at a culture capable of abstraction, foresight, and symbolic communication, qualities that resonate with humanity's most enduring questions about memory, meaning, and legacy. Even as we study the carvings, the caves themselves remind us that context is inseparable from content. The interplay of shadow and light, the echo of footsteps, the texture of the stone, all contribute to an immersive experience, one the original creators may have intentionally manipulated. Were these visual markers meant to be experienced during particular seasons or rituals? Did the caves serve as theaters for memory, storytelling, or spiritual practice, with the carvings acting as guides, anchors, or prompts for communal engagement? As we step back from these ancient stones, the Cholanaikkkan cave symbols linger in the imagination, defying easy categorization. They are traces of human presence that speak of intention, perception, and creativity, yet they guard their full meaning jealously. What messages were the original carvers attempting to convey? How much knowledge, ritual, or spiritual insight has been lost to time, leaving only these silent, enigmatic impressions on rock? And what other symbols, yet undiscovered, may lie hidden in caves, cliffs, or remote landscapes, waiting to reveal glimpses of human thought long vanished? The Cholanaikkkan cave symbols endure as subtle witnesses to early human creativity, ritual, and cognition. Their etched lines and intricate forms challenge modern observers to consider the depth of prehistoric thought, the intersection of environment and imagination, and the enduring mystery of human expression. In the quiet darkness of these caves, the past whispers, inviting us to wonder, to reflect, and to acknowledge that even in our pursuit of understanding, some mysteries remain timeless, unresolved, and compelling. From the quiet, shadowed caves of southern India, our journey now shifts to a very different kind of mystery. A manuscript shrouded in enigma, whose pages have confounded scholars, cryptographers, and linguists for centuries. The Voynich manuscript, often referred to simply as the Voynich MS, is a small, elegantly bound book filled with intricate illustrations and a script that has resisted every attempt at translation. Housed today at Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, it feels less like an object of paper and ink, and more like a portal into a mind or culture whose logic remains almost entirely opaque. The manuscript itself is visually arresting. Its vellum pages, yellowed with age, are adorned with swirling text composed of unfamiliar glyphs, some looping, others angular, all arranged with meticulous consistency. Interspersed among the writing are illustrations of plants, astronomical diagrams, naked figures immersed in pools or tubs of water, and strange organic-looking shapes that defy easy categorization. Every page radiates a sense of careful intention, yet the meaning, if there is one, is inaccessible. What knowledge, ritual, or narrative lies encoded within these strange symbols? And why has it been preserved in a form that speaks so little to us today? Radiocarbon dating places the manuscript in the early 15th century, yet its origins remain uncertain. Some scholars suggest northern Italy as a likely site of creation, though others propose Central Europe. Its authorship is equally mysterious. No record survives of the person or group responsible for producing it, nor any explanation for the script itself, which does not resemble any known language. Could it have been intended as a cipher, a private code for secret knowledge, or even an experimental form of writing that never gained widespread use? Attempts at decipherment have ranged from the methodical to the imaginative. Cryptographers during both world wars tried to break the manuscript, suspecting it might conceal military or diplomatic secrets. Linguists have analyzed word patterns, statistical distributions, and letter frequencies, yet none have found a consistent reading. Some researchers propose it could represent an unknown natural language, while others suggest a sophisticated hoax, though the manuscript's consistent grammar-like structures and repetition of symbols argue for a coherent, deliberate system. What remains undeniable is that whoever wrote it had mastery over its medium, producing not only the text, but the illustrations with remarkable care and precision. The illustrations themselves add to the manuscript's aura of mystery. Plants depicted in the Voynich MS are often unidentifiable, their forms unfamiliar yet suggestive of natural organisms. Astronomical diagrams appear to map constellations, planetary positions, or cycles, but do not correspond neatly to known systems. Groups of naked figures, sometimes floating in green pools, seem to enact rituals or demonstrate bodily processes, yet their meaning remains elusive. Could these images provide the key to understanding the text? Were they mnemonic aids, allegorical illustrations, or symbolic diagrams meant for an initiatory audience? Beyond speculation about its content, the Voynich manuscript challenges assumptions about the history of literacy, knowledge transmission, and secrecy. It suggests that in the medieval period, knowledge could be carefully protected or encoded, hidden from all but those equipped to interpret it. Could the manuscript represent a body of scientific, medicinal, or esoteric knowledge that was deliberately obscured? Some researchers draw parallels to alchemical texts or coded botanical treatises, noting the meticulous attention to detail and repetition that suggest a practical or functional purpose. Yet, even after centuries of study, its function remains a riddle. The physical craftsmanship of the manuscript is also notable. The vellum is of exceptional quality, and the ink shows evidence of careful layering and preservation. The consistency of the script across hundreds of pages, combined with the intricate illustrations, implies a process that required extraordinary patience and skill. Did a single person create the manuscript over years? Or was it a collaborative endeavor? And if so, how was knowledge transmitted among its creators, and for what purpose? Perhaps most haunting is the manuscript's resistance to understanding. It confronts modern readers with an uncomfortable possibility, that not all knowledge can be recovered, that some forms of thought may be incommunicable across time or culture. Its script, its imagery, and its intentionality are all tangible, yet the underlying message remains hidden, leaving us to confront the limits of interpretation. Does the manuscript represent a lost language, a forgotten science, or a playful intellectual exercise intended to baffle? Or does it point toward a human desire to encode experience in forms that transcend the ordinary, to leave a trace that resists casual comprehension? As we turn its fragile pages in imagination, we are drawn into a dialogue with its creator or creators, a conversation across centuries that cannot be fully answered. Every swirl of text, every botanical fantasy, and every enigmatic diagram is a deliberate gesture, a mark of intelligence and intent that defies our conventional methods of understanding. What can it tell us about the worldview of those who crafted it, and what knowledge has been lost simply because the key no longer exists? The Voynich manuscript endures as one of history's most compelling enigmas, a testament to human ingenuity, imagination, and the desire to communicate across time. It challenges our assumptions about language, meaning, and the permanence of knowledge. In its twisting glyphs and alien flora, we glimpse a mind that was both disciplined and inventive, and we are reminded that some mysteries are designed to endure, resisting resolution, provoking curiosity, and inviting wonder across generations. From the perplexing glyphs of the Voynich manuscript, our journey moves back into the deep past, to a time when human thought was etched not in ink, but in stone, and expression may have been as much about recognition as about creation. In the limestone caves of South Africa's Makapansgat Valley, a small, unassuming pebble was discovered. A simple piece of jasper, reddish-brown in color, no larger than a man's thumb. Yet this pebble, known as the Makapansgat Manuscript, carries with it one of the earliest enigmas of human cognition, a silent witness to the subtle sparks of symbolic thought in our distant ancestors. At first glance, it appears ordinary, smooth, worn by millennia of movement through natural waterways with no carvings, engravings, or artificial markings. But closer examination reveals a striking detail. The pebble bears a natural pattern of grooves and indentations that, to the human eye, evokes a rudimentary face. Two depressions resembling eyes, a slight ridge suggesting a nose, and an indentation below hinting at a mouth create an almost instinctive recognition of familiarity. This is a phenomenon known as pareidolia, where the mind perceives faces or patterns in random objects. But what makes the Makapansgat Pebble extraordinary is that it was transported, not left where it was found, by Australopithecine hands over a distance of more than 30 kilometers from its source. This simple act of transportation transforms the pebble from geological curiosity into a profound artifact of cognition. The Australopithecines who carried it could not have produced the face themselves. It was naturally formed, but they evidently recognized its resemblance to a human face and deemed it worth carrying. What motivated this behavior? Was it an aesthetic appreciation, a sense of wonder, or an instinctual recognition of social or spiritual significance? The pebble suggests a capacity for abstract thought far earlier than previously assumed, a nascent awareness of symbolism in an ancestor thought to have limited cognitive ability. The context of the discovery adds layers to its mystery. The Makapansgat caves, rich in fossilized bones and remnants of early hominins, paint a picture of a landscape both harsh and vital, where survival demanded keen observation, dexterity, and ingenuity. Against this backdrop, the intentional collection and transport of a non-utilitarian object becomes all the more striking. Why would a creature living primarily for sustenance carry a smooth, inconsequential stone hundreds of meters, or even kilometers, beyond its functional value? Could it have served as a talisman, a marker, or even a primitive form of communication or ritual? Anthropologists have long debated the implications of the Makapansgat Pebble. Mainstream interpretations suggest it reflects early aesthetic sensibilities, the first inklings of what would become symbolic culture. But the lack of comparable finds in the same region leaves questions unanswered. Was this an isolated act of recognition, a fleeting moment of curiosity, or part of a broader, unrecorded behavior? Some have speculated that such acts mark the emergence of proto-cognitive skills, the roots of art, religion, and social signaling. Yet, without corroborating evidence, we are left to wonder whether the pebble represents a singular event or a pattern of thought repeated across generations. The pebble's simplicity is part of its power. Unlike later artifacts, it does not require sophisticated tools or techniques to understand or to create. Its significance lies entirely in perception, in the capacity of a mind to see something beyond immediate utility, to assign meaning where none was explicitly intended by nature. In this sense, the Makapansgat Pebble is less an object than a mirror, reflecting the cognitive leap that allowed early hominins to interpret, value, and interact with the world in symbolic ways. Could this tiny stone mark the very beginning of human consciousness, a first step toward art, ritual, and abstract thought? consider the implications for our understanding of evolution. The recognition of faces or forms in natural objects suggests a neurological and psychological framework capable of abstraction and anticipation. It hints at empathy, imagination, or at least an aesthetic sensibility that challenges prior assumptions about Australopithecine intellect. Did this recognition arise purely from survival instincts, or does it reveal an early human desire to engage with the world beyond immediate practicality? The pebble sits at the intersection of nature and perception, a silent enigma bridging the material and the conceptual. Despite decades of study, the Makapansgat Pebble continues to provoke questions rather than provide answers. Its presence reminds us that symbolic thought did not emerge fully formed with Homo sapiens, but evolved incrementally, in quiet acts of observation, recognition, and perhaps reverence. How many other objects, lost to erosion, time, or indifference, may have served as similar early catalysts of cognition? And what does it mean that our distant ancestors were capable of perceiving meaning in patterns, recognizing abstract forms, and carrying them across landscapes with deliberate intent? As we hold the pebble in imagination, its smooth surface and subtle facial features invite reflection on the origins of human thought. It represents the moment when perception became a bridge to meaning, when a mind saw more than survival, when curiosity and recognition began to shape interaction with the world. In its silence, it asks us to consider the depth of our cognitive lineage, the evolutionary roots of art, symbolism, and consciousness itself. The Makapansgat Pebble endures as one of the earliest known testimonies to human-like perception and symbolic thought. Small, unremarkable in size, yet monumental in implication, it challenges our understanding of intelligence, intention, and the gradual emergence of culture. In the ancient riverbeds and rocky hills of South Africa, it remains a quiet, enigmatic witness, reminding us that even in the earliest chapters of human history, mystery, imagination, and perception were already shaping the story of who we are. From the small, enigmatic pebble of South Africa, our journey now carries us across continents and millennia to the highlands of northern Ethiopia, where the ruins of the ancient kingdom of Aksum rise in solemn grandeur. Among the most striking remnants of this once powerful civilization are the towering stelae, monolithic pillars of granite, carved with precise geometries and decorated facades. While these stelae have long captivated historians and tourists alike, it is the lesser-known inscriptions etched into their surfaces, the Aksumite stelae minor glyphs, that hold a subtler, more tantalizing mystery, whispering of a language and symbolism that remains largely undeciphered. The stelae themselves dominate the landscape. Some soar over 20 meters into the sky, their tapering forms meticulously carved to resemble multi-tiered buildings, complete with doorways, windows, and decorative motifs. Yet among the grand facades are smaller, almost imperceptible inscriptions, rows of glyphs etched with painstaking care, often overlooked in favor of the monumental architecture. These minor carvings, though diminutive in scale, are remarkable in their precision and consistency. Each line, each curve, seems intentional, a deliberate attempt to encode information that has, so far, eluded comprehension. Dating from roughly the 4th to 6th centuries CE, the Aksumite stelae were erected as funerary monuments for kings, nobles, and high-ranking officials. The larger inscriptions proclaim the power, lineage, and achievements of the dead in Ge'ez, the liturgical and administrative language of Aksum. But the minor glyphs, often carved in inconspicuous corners or along edges, do not correspond neatly to known scripts. Could they represent an archaic or symbolic language, a secret register of ritual knowledge, or perhaps a form of notation only intelligible to a select priestly or scholarly class? The craftsmanship of the minor inscriptions is astonishing. Despite the hardness of the granite, the glyphs are etched with fine, precise lines, demonstrating both skill and intention. Their placement, sometimes aligned with architectural features, sometimes hidden in plain sight, suggests a nuanced understanding of geometry, perspective, and visual hierarchy. Were these inscriptions intended as a private layer of meaning, accessible only to the initiated, or as a record meant to persist invisibly, communicating across time to those who could read them? Mainstream scholarship often interprets the minor glyphs as secondary or ornamental, perhaps shorthand notes, symbolic markers, or annotations by artisans. Yet their consistency across multiple stelae and sites challenges this assumption. Patterns emerge, hints of repeated symbols that suggest a structured system rather than random decoration. Could these glyphs contain genealogical information, ritual instructions, or esoteric knowledge tied to Axumite cosmology? Or were they part of a broader network of encoded communication within the kingdom, linking sacred spaces and royal monuments? Some researchers have noted the possibility that the minor glyphs were intended to complement the monumental inscriptions, forming a dual-layered system of meaning. The larger texts proclaim authority and power to the general population, while the smaller glyphs may convey subtler, perhaps spiritual or administrative messages to those with the cultural or intellectual tools to interpret them. Such a duality hints at a civilization conscious not only of its material power, but of the transmission of knowledge and symbolism, carefully calibrated to reach different audiences. The environment of Aksum further deepens the enigma. The stelae are often positioned within carefully planned necropolises, aligned with natural features, sacred paths, or celestial markers. The minor glyphs, though small, are integrated with this landscape, echoing the interplay between architecture, ritual, and the cosmos. Did the glyphs have a practical function in ritual ceremonies, astronomical observations, or administrative record-keeping? Or were they a more abstract expression of belief, a coded language bridging the human and divine realms? Comparisons with other scripts in the region raise additional questions. While Ge'ez and related inscriptions have been extensively studied, the minor glyphs resist classification. Their shapes, sequences, and orientations do not match the conventional alphabetic or syllabic patterns familiar to scholars. Could they represent an entirely lost writing system, or an experimental notation developed locally and abandoned with the decline of Aksum? If so, what knowledge, practice, or cultural memory was carried in these small, enigmatic carvings, and what was lost when their meaning disappeared? The very act of creating these glyphs speaks to the sophistication of Aksumite artisans and intellectuals. Carving into granite requires careful planning, precision, and an understanding of material limits. The glyphs' survival through centuries of weathering attests not only to their physical durability, but to the intention behind their creation. Whoever made them recognized that their message, however subtle or hidden, was worth preserving. But what was this message? And why was it encoded in such an understated form, invisible to all but those attuned to its nuances? Even today, as we examine these inscriptions, they resist easy interpretation. They are quiet, deliberate, and persistent, inviting us to imagine the people who carved them, their worldviews, and the knowledge they sought to transmit. Were these symbols a secret script of the elite, a spiritual code linking humans to the divine, or a proto-administrative system for an ancient state? Every mark is a question, every line a whisper from a civilization that achieved extraordinary architectural, economic, and cultural feats, yet left aspects of its knowledge tantalizingly out of reach. The Aksumite stellae minor glyphs endure as subtle witnesses to a civilization of remarkable complexity. They remind us that even in monumental societies, not all communication is immediately accessible, and that knowledge can be layered, encoded, and deliberately obscured. As we trace these small carvings in imagination, we are invited to consider the depth of human intention, the interplay of power, ritual, and symbolism, and the enduring mysteries that survive in stone long after their creators have vanished. What secrets do these glyphs still guard, and what other messages lie hidden in plain sight, waiting for insight, discovery, or the perceptive eye of the observer? From the soaring monoliths of Aksum and their subtle inscriptions, our exploration now moves northward, across the European continent to a rolling landscape in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland. Here lies a massive expanse of carved stone known as the Cockno Stone, a surface that, at first glance, appears ordinary, weathered, gray, and expansive. Yet on closer inspection, its surface is a labyrinth of intricate designs, spirals, cups, grooves, and geometric patterns etched with remarkable precision, forming a complex tapestry that has intrigued archaeologists, historians, and curious minds for over a century. The Cockno Stone covers an area of roughly 55 square meters, its flat surface densely packed with petroglyphs, each shape deliberate, each groove intentional. The patterns, concentric circles, cup and ring motifs, interlocking lines, and abstract symbols, repeat, overlap, and intertwine, creating an almost hypnotic visual rhythm. Some designs suggest celestial maps, others hints of ritual or social codification, while many remain stubbornly inscrutable. Here is a prehistoric canvas, one that speaks to human creativity and abstraction in ways that continue to challenge modern interpretation. Dating the carvings is inherently difficult. Scholars estimate that the Cockno Stone was created during the Bronze Age, around 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, yet its meaning remains elusive. Was it a ceremonial site, a place of gathering for prehistoric communities, or a symbolic map of land, water, and sky? The density and arrangement of the petroglyphs suggest an understanding of spatial organization, and perhaps even a codified system of communication, though what it might have conveyed is still uncertain. Could it have functioned as a record of astronomical knowledge, a sacred diagram for ritual practice, or a symbolic representation of societal structure? The scale and precision of the carvings are striking. Some of the cup marks are precisely circular, spirals carefully etched, and grooves aligned in seemingly intentional configurations. These details indicate more than casual scratching. They reveal planning, technique, and considerable effort. What motivated the creators to invest such labor into a single stone? Was it an offering to unseen forces, a repository of communal memory, or a visual language meant to encode knowledge inaccessible to the uninitiated? Mainstream interpretations often link the Cockno Stone to ritualistic or cosmological practices. Cup and ring marks appear at sites throughout Britain and Europe, hinting at a shared symbolic vocabulary, perhaps connected to fertility, water, or celestial cycles. Yet the sheer complexity of the Cockno Stone sets it apart. Its carvings seem more deliberate and intricate than many contemporaneous examples. Could this imply a higher level of cognitive sophistication, an understanding of abstraction, or a local cultural tradition distinct from broader Bronze Age practices? The location of the stone adds another layer of intrigue. Found in a shallow depression near the end of a ridge, it is both sheltered and exposed, suggesting an intentional placement within the natural landscape. Did the surrounding topography hold spiritual significance, or was it selected for its visibility and accessibility to a community that used the stone for teaching, ritual, or observation? The relationship between the carvings and their environment hints at a holistic worldview, one in which natural features and human expression were inseparable. Despite numerous studies, including detailed surveys and rubbings in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, much about the Cockno Stone remains unresolved. Some researchers have proposed that the patterns correspond to lunar or solar calendars, while others suggest the stone encodes genealogical or territorial information. Fringe theories abound, ranging from depictions of star maps to abstract communication with unseen forces. yet no interpretation has achieved consensus, and the stone continues to defy definitive explanation. The Kokno stone also raises broader questions about human cognition in the Bronze Age. Its creators engaged in abstract representation, spatial reasoning, and complex patterning, qualities we often associate with more modern cultures. Did these petroglyphs serve as mnemonic devices, guiding oral narratives, or as a symbolic system with rules and meanings now lost? Could they reflect a sophisticated understanding of mathematics, astronomy, or social organization, preserved in stone long after the context that gave them meaning vanished? Human interaction with the Kokno stone continued long after its initial creation. Folklore, local legends, and ritual practices developed around the site, demonstrating the enduring power of its imagery. In the 20th century, archaeologists documented and photographed the stone, but in 1965, it was deliberately buried to protect it from vandalism, leaving only partial access to its enigmatic surface. This act of preservation underscores both its fragility and its continuing ability to provoke fascination, as if the stone itself is aware of the centuries that have passed, silently guarding its secrets beneath layers of soil. The petroglyph's abstract nature invites contemplation as much as analysis. Spirals, concentric circles, and intricate grooves may represent journeys, cycles, or cosmological principles. Yet their precise meaning escapes us, reminding us that symbolism is as much about perception as it is about intent. We see patterns and forms, and in doing so, we attempt to reconstruct thought processes, beliefs, and priorities from a distant past. But how close can we truly come to understanding the minds of those who shaped the Kokno stone? As we stand, even imaginatively, before this enormous, engraved expanse, the Kokno stone challenges our assumptions about prehistoric human sophistication. It demonstrates that abstract thought, symbolic representation, and deliberate planning were present thousands of years ago in forms both subtle and monumental. Its intricate carvings are not merely decoration, they are a dialogue between human intention and the natural world, a tangible testament to the universality of curiosity and imagination. The Kokno stone endures as a silent witness to Bronze Age creativity, ritual, and cognition. Its spirals, cups, and grooves continue to intrigue and confound, reminding us that even in prehistory, humans were capable of abstraction, symbolism, and the desire to communicate across generations. What stories, beliefs, or knowledge did the stone once encode? And what other enigmatic surfaces, long buried or lost, might yet lie hidden in the landscapes of our past waiting for discovery? From the enigmatic spirals and grooves of Scotland's Kokno stone, our journey moves southeast across the British Isles to the rolling chalk hills of Oxfordshire, England. Here, high atop the escarpment of Whitehorse Hill, stretches a figure carved into the landscape itself, the Uffington White Horse. Unlike petroglyphs or stelae, this creation is not etched into stone, but into the very earth, a vast geoglyph visible for miles, both from the surrounding land and, intriguingly, from the sky. It is a figure of striking abstraction, a horse rendered in elegant, sweeping lines, more symbolic than realistic, with limbs extended in dynamic yet minimalist form. The Uffington White Horse is immense, measuring approximately 110 meters in length, its outline cut into the chalk hillside and maintained through centuries of scouring and care. The hill itself rises sharply from the surrounding Vale of Whitehorse, providing a commanding view of the surrounding countryside. From this vantage, the figure seems almost to gallop across the landscape, a frozen motion captured in chalk and earth, a symbol whose original meaning has been lost to time, yet continues to inspire curiosity and wonder. Dating the geoglyph has proven difficult, though archaeological evidence suggests it may have been created during the late Bronze Age or early Iron Age, around 3,000 years ago. Excavations in the surrounding area have revealed remnants of ritual activity, settlements, and burial mounds, suggesting the hill was a locus of cultural and spiritual significance. The placement of the white horse within this broader landscape hints at intentionality far beyond mere decoration. Could it have been a marker of territory, a totem of tribal identity, or a symbol of mythic or cosmological importance, visible both to the people who lived nearby and, perhaps, to the spirits or deities they revered? The figure itself is deceptively simple. Its lines are abstract, almost geometric, yet convey unmistakable vitality. There are no attempts at anatomical precision. The shape of the horse is stylized, designed for impact rather than realism. This abstraction invites interpretation. Perhaps it was meant to represent the essence of the animal rather than a literal depiction, capturing motion, strength, or spiritual resonance in a form that could be recognized instantly. What knowledge, symbolism, or narrative was encoded in these sweeping curves, and why was the medium chosen as the rolling chalk hillside rather than a more conventional, portable surface? Mainstream scholarship often interprets the white horse as a territorial marker or emblem of local identity. Its proximity to burial mounds and ritual enclosures lends weight to the idea of ceremonial significance. Yet the scale of the geoglyph, visible across vast distances, suggests it was intended to be seen, and perhaps understood, in a wider context. Was it a message to neighboring communities, a symbol of power and presence? Or might it have functioned as part of a larger ritual landscape, aligned with the sun, moon, or stars, in ways we are only beginning to comprehend? The surrounding landscape is as much a part of the mystery as the horse itself. The hill is dotted with other archaeological features, linear earthworks, enclosures, and nearby hill forts, suggesting a complex and carefully planned landscape. Did the horse's placement relate to these features, forming a network of visual and symbolic cues across the terrain? Was it part of seasonal ceremonies, or perhaps a landmark for astronomical observation, its lines oriented to align with solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial events? The integration of natural and human-made elements speaks to a sophisticated understanding of landscape as both physical and symbolic canvas. Even the construction of the white horse raises questions. Maintaining such a figure requires regular scouring, a process that would have demanded communal labor and coordination. Over the centuries, the design has been preserved through the efforts of successive generations, yet the exact methods and techniques of its original creation remain unknown. Did the creators work from scaled plans, or did they rely on sightlines and simple tools, translating vision into landscape with remarkable precision? And what does this tell us about the social organization, technical skill, and cultural priorities of the communities responsible? Some interpretations venture further, suggesting that the Uffington white horse represents a mythological or spiritual horse, a symbol of cosmic or seasonal cycles, fertility, or protection. Its abstract design allows for multiple readings, and perhaps this ambiguity was intentional, permitting the figure to carry layered meanings accessible to different members of the community. Could the figure have been a mediator between human and supernatural realms, a permanent mark in the landscape that connected daily life with the rhythms of nature and the cosmos? Modern observers continue to grapple with its significance. The white horse is at once a work of art, a symbol of identity, and a monument of human ingenuity. Its lines endure, maintained in chalk, weathered yet persistent, and visible across centuries, a reminder that even in prehistory, humans sought to impose meaning, order, and expression upon the natural world. It invites reflection on the capacity for abstraction, symbolic thought, and cultural continuity, offering a tangible link between past and present. As we stand before the hill, or gaze upon it from afar, the Uffington Whitehorse challenges us to consider the interplay between humans, landscape, and memory. Its form is simple, yet its presence is profound. It asks us to imagine the hands and minds that carved it, the communities that sustained it, and the meanings, practical, spiritual, or symbolic, that it once held. How much of this story has been lost to time, leaving only the lines of chalk to hint at intention? And what else, hidden in hills and valleys, awaits discovery, a testament to the enduring creativity and mystery of human expression? The Uffington Whitehorse endures as more than an image. It is a dialogue across millennia, an invitation to ponder, to wonder, and to connect with the minds of those who walked these hills long before our own. Its elegant abstraction reminds us that human creativity has always sought to transcend immediate survival, leaving traces that challenge, inspire, and endure, patiently waiting for the observer who will engage with its mysteries. From the rolling chalk hills of Oxfordshire and the abstract symbolism of the Uffington Whitehorse, our exploration takes us eastward, across continents and oceans, to the islands of Japan, where a remarkable tradition of prehistoric artistry emerges in the form of the Jomon culture. Among its most intriguing creations are the small clay figurines known as dogu, artifacts that have captivated archaeologists and enthusiasts alike. While these figurines display a variety of forms, it is the striking patterns of their eyes, the Jomon ocular motifs, that continue to perplex and fascinate, suggesting symbolic or spiritual meanings that remain elusive after millennia. The dogu are small, often only a few inches tall, yet they convey an extraordinary presence. Crafted from clay, their forms range from abstract humanoid shapes to more detailed representations, often adorned with intricate patterns and textures. The eyes, however, are among the most arresting features. Large, almond-shaped, deeply incised or covered with lattice-like designs, they dominate the faces of the figurines. Some appear to stare outward unblinkingly, while others seem to peer inward, their gaze suggesting introspection, perception, or even connection to realms beyond ordinary human experience. The Jomon period, spanning roughly 14,000 to 300 BCE, was a time of complex hunter-gatherer societies, rich in pottery, weaving, and ritual practice. The dogu were produced over centuries, often found in domestic sites, pits, or burials. Their small scale belies the sophistication of their construction. Clay was carefully shaped, fired at controlled temperatures, and decorated with meticulous detail. The eyes, in particular, are not merely decorative. Their exaggerated form and repeated motifs suggest deliberate symbolism. Why did the creators emphasize vision in these figurines? What did the eyes signify in the cosmology, rituals, or social life of the Jomon people? Mainstream interpretations propose that the eye patterns may have represented spiritual or protective functions. Some scholars suggest that the dogu served as talismans, absorbing illness, misfortune, or malevolent forces, with the eyes acting as conduits or focal points for these powers. Others interpret them as figures associated with fertility, shamanic practices, or ancestral veneration, their gaze bridging the human and supernatural worlds. Yet the sheer diversity and abstraction of the ocular designs resist singular explanations. The patterns vary from deeply geometric, almost mechanical arrangements to organic, flowing designs, each seemingly deliberate yet enigmatic in purpose. The craftsmanship of the eyes is remarkable. In some dogu, the eyes are enlarged, dominating the face, and sometimes exaggerated to an almost surreal extent. In others, they are punctured, cross-hatched, or incised with patterns that may mimic light reflection or convey symbolic meaning. The variation suggests that each figurine may have carried unique significance, perhaps intended for different rituals, spiritual roles, or personal associations. Could the eyes have served as a form of nonverbal communication, encoding information or intentions within their patterns? Or were they meant to elicit response from observers, invoking awe, reverence, or contemplation? The context of discovery adds further intrigue. Dogu are often found in household spaces, suggesting that these were objects of daily ritual or personal significance. Some are deliberately broken before deposition, hinting at ceremonial practices or symbolic release of the figurine's power. The eyes, central to each figure's presence, may have been the focal point of such rituals, a physical manifestation of attention, perception, or spiritual vigilance. Did the creators believe that these eyes could see beyond the ordinary, observing forces invisible to the human eye, or connecting their owners with protective or healing energies? Comparisons with other Jomon artifacts underscore the prominence of ocular motifs. Pottery, masks, and even decorative tools occasionally display similar emphasis on eyes or visual symbolism, suggesting a broader cultural fascination with perception, awareness, and vision. Could this reflect a worldview in which sight, or perhaps the metaphysical equivalent, was considered central to knowledge, power, or spirituality? And if so, what does that imply about the cognitive and cultural sophistication of societies often regarded as primarily subsistence-based? The repeated emphasis on the eyes raises questions that reach beyond the Jomon Islands. The abstraction and deliberate exaggeration suggest an intentional encoding of meaning, a symbolic language whose rules are now lost. Were these figurines part of a ritualized system of communication, spiritual practice, or social instruction? Did they function as conduits for memory, teaching, or community identity? And what knowledge, beliefs, or traditions have vanished alongside the original context, leaving only the enigmatic gaze of these small clay figures to hint at their purpose? Even today, the Dogu continue to challenge perception and interpretation. Their small scale belies their intensity. The gaze of each figure commands attention, inviting contemplation, reflection, and speculation. The Jomon ocular motifs serve as a reminder that human expression, abstraction, and symbolism have deep roots, often emerging in ways that defy conventional expectations. They speak not only to artistry and ritual, but to cognition and cultural complexity, offering glimpses of thought processes and belief systems that remain tantalizingly out of reach. The Jomon Dogu, with their striking eyes and intricate patterns, endure as intimate yet profound witnesses to prehistoric human creativity. They invite us to consider the nature of perception, the ways humans have sought to engage with the unseen, and the depth of symbolic thought long before written language. What exactly did the eyes see or signify for their creators? What messages were intended and which were lost to time? And how many other expressions of early human insight, subtly embedded in form, material, and gaze, lie undiscovered, waiting to challenge our understanding of cognition, ritual, and the mysteries of human history? From the small, inscrutable clay figures of Japan, our exploration now turns to the high plains of the Andes, where the ancient city of Tiahuanaco rises from the windswept altiplano of modern-day Bolivia. Here, stone monuments, carved gateways, and precisely shaped blocks testify to a civilization of remarkable skill and vision. Yet amid the architectural grandeur lies a subtler, less celebrated enigma. Traces of sophisticated hydraulic engineering, remnants of channels, canals, and reservoirs that hint at a knowledge of water management far ahead of its time. These are the Tiahuanaco hydraulic traces, quiet witnesses to ingenuity, adaptation, and perhaps even lost techniques that challenge our understanding of ancient civilizations. The site of Tiahuanaco sits near the southern shore of Lake Titicaca at an elevation exceeding 3,800 meters. The climate is harsh: thin air, intense sun, and dramatic seasonal variations in rainfall and temperature. Water is scarce and seasonal, yet the city's layout suggests careful attention to its management. Carved stone channels and subtle terraces guide the flow of rainwater and runoff, creating patterns that hint at both practicality and intentional design. Unlike the grand ceremonial architecture that dominates the landscape, these hydraulic traces are understated, almost hidden, evidence of an intimate dialogue between humans and their environment. Archaeologists have long debated the extent and purpose of these waterworks. Some channels appear to feed large ceremonial plazas, while others trace the contours of terraces and elevated platforms, hinting at irrigation or flood mitigation. The precision with which stone channels are cut, aligned, and interconnected suggests careful planning. Yet unlike the monumental gateways or the precisely cut stones of the Kalasasaya and Akapana structures, these water traces have no overt symbolic or decorative purpose, their artistry functional but no less remarkable. How did the Tiahuanaco engineers achieve such exactness at a time when tools were limited and knowledge of hydraulics was largely empirical? Mainstream interpretations describe the traces as practical solutions for urban planning in a challenging environment, a combination of drainage, irrigation, and water storage to support both human populations and agricultural systems. Certainly, the Altiplano's seasonal rains would have required careful management to prevent erosion and flooding, while ensuring a reliable water supply for crops. Yet closer examination raises questions that go beyond conventional engineering. The channels are remarkably uniform in depth and width, with gentle gradients that maintain flow without eroding the stone. Some appear to converge at central points or align with architectural features in ways that suggest intentional spatial harmony. Was this purely functional, or could there have been a symbolic or ritual component to their design as well? The materials themselves are telling. The channels are often carved from single blocks of andesite, a hard volcanic stone, or from terraces carefully contoured from natural bedrock. Achieving consistent gradients and smooth channels in such materials would have required extensive knowledge of stoneworking, hydrodynamics, and topography. Could the Tiahuanaco engineers have had conceptual understanding of water pressure, flow velocity, or seasonal variation? Or was their expertise empirical, developed through observation, trial, and refinement over generations? And if such knowledge existed, why does it appear so advanced compared to contemporary civilizations at similar altitudes and latitudes? Beyond the technical aspects, there is the question of intent. Some channels seem to connect sacred structures, plazas, and ceremonial spaces. Others feed terraced agricultural zones, suggesting a dual purpose of utility and symbolism. Could water itself have been a medium of ritual, a lifeblood flowing through both physical and spiritual landscapes? The convergence of practical and ceremonial functions is a hallmark of many ancient civilizations, yet the Tiahuanaco traces exhibit a precision and integration that raises questions about cognitive and organizational capacity. How were these designs conceived, communicated, and executed without written engineering manuals or standardized measurement systems? Some researchers have speculated that these waterworks may reflect knowledge that has since been lost. Techniques for channeling, storing, or distributing water in extreme high-altitude environments that modern engineers struggle to replicate. Others suggest that the alignment and connectivity of the channels may encode cosmological knowledge, linking water flow to celestial observation or ritual cycles. Could there be a hidden logic embedded in the channels, a dual function of hydraulic engineering and symbolic communication, now obscured by centuries of erosion and archaeological ambiguity? The hydraulic traces are also remarkably resilient. Despite centuries of exposure to wind, rain, and seismic activity, many channels remain visible and functional in outline, demonstrating both the durability of construction and the foresight of their creators. This endurance invites reflection on the relationship between humans and environment, how ancient civilizations adapted to extreme conditions, embedding knowledge into stone, landscape, and collective practice. What skills, observations, and communal coordination were required to create such systems, and why have some of these techniques seemingly vanished from the historical record? As we walk among the terraces, overgrown channels, and stone basins, the Tiahuanaco hydraulic traces invite contemplation of human ingenuity, environmental awareness, and the subtle ways civilizations leave their mark on the land. These remnants are at once practical and mysterious, functional and evocative, demonstrating a depth of knowledge and planning that challenges assumptions about the technological capabilities of pre-Columbian societies. They ask us to consider the interplay of survival, artistry, ritual, and intellectual pursuit in human history. The Tiahuanaco waterworks endure as silent, flowing witnesses to a society that mastered both stone and environment, leaving traces that continue to inspire wonder and inquiry. What full understanding of their hydraulic ingenuity has been lost to time? What other knowledge, buried or forgotten, might remain hidden in the Andean highlands, encoded in stone channels, terraces, and the very contours of the earth? As we trace the lines and curves cut into the high-altitude landscape, we are reminded that human innovation has always found subtle, enduring expression, even in the most remote and challenging places on Earth. From the high plains of the Andes and the flowing channels of Tiahuanaco, our exploration now moves across continents and seas to the sun-drenched island of Crete, where a singular artifact has puzzled scholars for over a century, the Phaistos Disc. Unearthed in 1908 from the Minoan palace of Phaistos, this small clay disc, roughly 15 centimeters in diameter, carries a spiral of stamped symbols on both sides, forming a visual language that has resisted interpretation despite decades of study. Its discovery revealed not only an object of craftsmanship, but a profound enigma, a coded message from a civilization long vanished. The disc itself is deceptively simple in form, a circular tablet of fired clay, its surface divided into a continuous spiral of impressioned signs. Each symbol appears to have been stamped individually, using pre-carved seals, suggesting a methodical approach to its creation. The images range from human figures to tools, animals, plants, and abstract forms, repeated and organized with apparent intention. The precision of the impressions, combined with the uniformity of the spiral layout, hints at a practiced technique, yet the meaning behind the signs remains tantalizingly out of reach. Dating places the disc in the late Minoan period, roughly 1700 BCE, a time when Crete was a hub of maritime trade, artistry, and palace-centered civilization. The Minoans left behind elaborate frescoes, pottery, and architecture, yet little in the way of decipherable writing. The Phaistos Disc stands apart. It is unique, with no clear parallels in Minoan scripts or other contemporaneous writing systems. Could it represent a localized experiment in communication, a mnemonic device, a ritual object, or even a proto-alphabet awaiting a lost context? The spiral form itself invites contemplation. Unlike linear texts, the disc's symbols follow a continuous inward journey, drawing the eye into its center. This circularity may hold symbolic significance, perhaps reflecting cosmological ideas, cycles of time, or ritual practices. The method of stamping, rather than hand carving, suggests the Minoans possessed a system of mass-produced symbolic representation. Yet the choice to encode a message on a single, isolated object raises questions about its purpose. Was it a personal artifact, a ceremonial token, or a public statement? Mainstream scholarship has debated its function extensively. Some suggest the disc is a form of writing, encoding a hymn, a list, or a ritual incantation. Others posit that it may have served as a calendrical device, a game, or even a token of trade. The recurring motifs, human figures with raised arms, animals, tools, and abstract shapes, might correspond to words, syllables, or concepts. Yet the lack of other examples prevents definitive interpretation. The disc's singularity is both a fascination and a frustration. It represents knowledge deliberately preserved, yet the key to that knowledge has been lost. The craftsmanship itself is remarkable. Each impression is carefully aligned, the spiral carefully measured, the symbols proportionate and consistent. The use of stamps implies an organized system, a cognitive framework that understood both repetition and variation. How were these symbols conceived, chosen, and arranged? Were they part of a larger corpus, now vanished, or was this disc a one-of-a-kind creation, designed for a specific moment, person, or ritual? Speculative interpretations invite even broader reflection. Some have proposed that the disc encodes astronomical or calendrical information, mapping the stars, the sun, or agricultural cycles. Others suggest mystical or ceremonial use, perhaps as an offering, talisman, or instrument of memory. Could the spiral itself be a symbolic path, guiding its holder through a conceptual or spiritual journey? The ambiguity of the disc ensures that each interpretation is provisional, a window into human ingenuity and imagination as much as it is a record of lost knowledge. The discovery context adds to the intrigue. Found in a storage area of the palace, the disc was neither hidden nor prominently displayed. This raises questions about its intended audience and use. Was it a tool for the elite, a message for the learned, or a symbolic object whose significance lay in secrecy? And if it carried meaning, why has no comparable artifact been found elsewhere in the palace complex or across Minoan Crete? Its isolation underscores both the uniqueness of the object and the depth of the mystery it preserves. Even the medium, the fired clay, offers clues yet raises questions. Clay is durable yet portable, easily stamped and stored, suggesting intentionality in both creation and preservation. The act of stamping, rather than carving, also implies a conceptual leap. The idea of using a pre-made sign to convey a specific meaning. This demonstrates abstract thinking, foresight, and symbolic literacy, qualities that underscore the cognitive sophistication of the Minoan culture. Yet, what precisely was being communicated, and why in this particular medium, remains unsolved. The Phaistos Disc continues to captivate imagination because it embodies the intersection of human creativity, technology, and mystery. Its spiral of symbols invites us to ponder the thoughts, beliefs, and intentions of people long vanished from the world, offering a glimpse of knowledge encoded in ways we may never fully recover. Was it a practical document, a sacred object, or a playful experiment in symbolic representation? Does it conceal information we could understand with the right key, or is it a deliberate enigma meant to elude casual interpretation and reward those initiated into its meaning? As we consider the disc today, the symbols seem to pulse with latent significance, a dialogue across 3 millennia. They remind us that human ingenuity has always sought to capture experience, knowledge, and ritual in tangible form, even when the meaning is destined to remain hidden. The Phaistos Disc endures as a singular artifact of mystery, challenging us to recognize that the past was as rich in abstraction, symbolism, and inventive thought as the present. What secrets might this tiny spiral hold, and how many other expressions of human insight, silently etched or stamped into the materials of history, await discovery and understanding? From the spiraling symbols of the Phaistos Disc, we journey across continents once again, this time to the sun-scorched sands of southern Egypt, where the vast expanse of the Nubian desert stretches to the horizon. Here, in a remote and seemingly inhospitable landscape, lie one of the most enigmatic archaeological sites of prehistoric Africa, Nabta Playa. Among its scattered stones and ancient ceremonial grounds, Researchers have identified complex alignments, carefully positioned stones that trace patterns with remarkable precision, hinting at knowledge of astronomy, ritual, and social organization that continues to challenge our understanding. These are the Nabta peripheral alignments, silent markers of human intention set against a vast desert canvas. Nabta Playa itself appears deceptively simple. A series of shallow basins and dry lake beds, punctuated by clusters of stones, occupies a region that would have been far more verdant during the early Holocene, roughly 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. Archaeological evidence suggests a thriving pastoralist community, reliant on cattle herding, seasonal water availability, and ritualized gatherings. It is within this context that the peripheral stone alignments assume significance. At first glance, they appear as mere clusters of boulders, yet careful study reveals deliberate positioning, spacing, and orientation. Some stones are set in circular formations, others in linear patterns pointing toward specific celestial phenomena, particularly solstices and possibly other astronomical events. The precision of these alignments raises immediate questions. How did prehistoric communities, without compasses, telescopes, or written records, achieve such coordinated positioning? Mainstream interpretations suggest practical and ceremonial purposes, markers of seasonal cycles, guides for migratory herding, or spaces for communal ritual. Yet the geometric sophistication of certain arrangements hints at an understanding of the heavens far beyond what might be expected of small, mobile communities. Did the builders intend merely to track the sun's movement? Or were they encoding broader cosmological knowledge within the desert landscape? One of the most striking aspects of Nabta Playa is the integration of the natural environment into its design. The stone placements interact with the topography, with low ridges, basins, and horizon lines acting as natural sightlines. Observers standing at specific points could witness the alignment of stones with solar events, such as the midsummer sunrise, creating visual and symbolic resonance. This interaction of environment, observation, and human design speaks to a sophisticated awareness of space and time. Were these alignments primarily utilitarian, aiding seasonal planning, or did they serve ritualized functions as ceremonial markers linking the community to cosmic cycles? Some stones bear markings and shaping, though not to the degree of sculpted megaliths found in later cultures. Even so, the careful placement, repetition of motifs, and consistent orientation indicate intentionality. The question arises, how did knowledge of such alignments emerge, and how was it transmitted? Oral tradition, observation over generations, and collective participation likely played a role, yet the cognitive and observational skills required to achieve such precision remain impressive. Were these people early astronomers, capable of predicting solstices and lunar movements? Or were they working within symbolic frameworks whose meaning is now obscured? Beyond astronomy, the stone arrangements hint at broader social and ritual significance. Some formations appear to frame spaces suitable for gatherings, ritual feasts, or communal events. Others suggest processional pathways or delineated zones for ceremonial activity. The connection between celestial alignment and human assembly implies a worldview in which time, space, and social cohesion were intertwined. Could these peripheral stones have been both markers of seasonal survival and instruments of cultural memory, encoding events, myths, or ancestral knowledge in ways we can no longer fully decipher? Speculative interpretations have expanded over the decades. Some researchers suggest that Nabta Playa predates many known megalithic sites, offering insight into early African contributions to monumental and symbolic architecture. Others propose that the alignments served as early calendars, guiding herding, planting, or ritual cycles with extraordinary accuracy. A few fringe theories even suggest that the precision of the stones indicates influence or knowledge beyond what seems plausible for a small pastoralist society. While such ideas are controversial, they underscore the enduring sense of mystery that surrounds these arrangements. We are confronted with evidence of deliberate design, yet lack the cultural keys to fully decode it. The temporal depth of Nabta Playa adds further intrigue. Excavations reveal repeated use over millennia, with successive generations maintaining, modifying, and adding to the alignments. This continuity suggests that the site was not a fleeting project, but a focal point of communal, spiritual, and practical life. Each generation inherited not only the stones themselves, but the knowledge, rituals, and social significance associated with them. Yet much of this understanding has been lost, leaving only the physical trace of intention etched into the desert floor. Walking among the stones today, the landscape evokes both clarity and enigma. The vast horizons, shimmering heat, and austere beauty underscore the ingenuity required to construct, observe, and interpret such alignments. Each stone seems to converse with the sun, the sky, and the observer, forming a dialogue that spans millennia. How much did the builders understand about the cycles of the heavens, and what symbolic, ritual, or social meanings accompanied this practical knowledge? The Nabta peripheral alignments endure as quiet witnesses to human curiosity, observation, and ingenuity in one of the planet's most challenging environments. They invite us to reflect on the intersection of survival, spirituality, and the cosmos, reminding us that even in seemingly remote and harsh landscapes, human societies were capable of abstract thought, sophisticated planning, and symbolic expression. What full understanding of these alignments has been lost to time, and what other prehistoric marvels lie hidden beneath sand, stone, and centuries of desert wind, waiting to illuminate the depth of early human cognition and ritual practice? From the sun-scorched sands of southern Egypt, where ancient stones trace the movement of the heavens, our journey now moves to the lush, tropical savannas of central Nigeria, where a different kind of mystery has long captivated archaeologists and historians alike: the Nok culture and its remarkable terracotta figures. Unlike the monumental stone alignments of Nabta Playa, the Nok legacy is preserved in baked clay, fragile yet enduring, with each figure bearing subtle production marks that hint at practices, knowledge, and intentions far more complex than previously imagined. These are the Nok terracotta production marks, silent signatures of ancient artisans whose work has survived for over 2 millennia, offering tantalizing glimpses into a culture both sophisticated and enigmatic. The landscape of central Nigeria, a patchwork of savanna and woodland, is dotted with the remains of ancient settlements, burial sites, and clay workshops. Here, the Nok people crafted figurines and sculptural works that are astonishing in both detail and scale, while the figures themselves, stylized human forms, often with elaborate hairstyles, exaggerated features, and expressive postures, have been the focus of much scholarly attention. It is the subtle marks left in the clay that reveal an even deeper layer of mystery. These production marks, often found on the base, back, or internal surfaces of the figures, suggest deliberate processes of assembly, finishing, and perhaps symbolic notation. Analysis of the marks indicates a systematic approach to terracotta production. Finger impressions, tool incisions, and scoring patterns reveal that the artisans did not merely shape clay haphazardly. They followed a carefully considered methodology. The internal hollows of many figures, the alignment of limbs, and the consistent treatment of surfaces point to an advanced understanding of both material properties and structural integrity. Even the smallest marks, tiny indentations, lines, or notches, may carry meaning, possibly denoting the workshop, the individual artisan, or stages in a complex production sequence. How much of this system was practical, and how much was imbued with ritual or symbolic significance. Dating the Nok terracottas between roughly 1000 BCE and 300 CE, researchers have suggested that these marks represent some of the earliest known organized artisanal practices in West Africa. Unlike inscriptions or writing systems, the production marks do not convey language in a conventional sense, yet they may constitute a form of proto-notation, a silent record of craft knowledge. Could these subtle signals have allowed for the transmission of technical skills across generations, ensuring consistency and quality? And if so, what other cultural or ritual knowledge might have been encoded in clay alongside the practical techniques? Mainstream interpretations often emphasize the artistic and ritualistic significance of the figures themselves, representations of ancestors, spiritual beings, or social roles within Nok society. Yet the presence of systematic production marks raises additional questions about the organization of workshops and the role of artisans. Were these marks a form of early quality control, akin to a signature or brand, or were they part of a ritualized process, embedding protective or symbolic power into each object? The meticulous attention to detail, evident both externally and internally, points to a society that valued precision, symbolism, and the continuity of craft knowledge. Some researchers have proposed that certain marks correspond to specific workshops or regional styles, suggesting a network of artisanal centers connected across central Nigeria. If so, the implications are profound. These communities would have shared not only stylistic preferences but also technical knowledge, organizational practices, and perhaps symbolic frameworks long before the emergence of complex written records. Could the marks indicate a form of coded communication within artisan networks, conveying information about intended use, ceremonial significance, or even ownership? The material itself, clay tempered with local minerals and fired at relatively low temperatures, reveals both ingenuity and limitation. Working with clay in the humid, tropical climate of the region would have required precise control over moisture, shaping, and drying. The marks, subtle though they may seem, attest to a deep understanding of the medium, as well as a highly developed cognitive ability to plan and execute complex forms. Each figure, though fragile, embodies layers of knowledge: observation, design, structural engineering, and possibly symbolic notation, all encoded in a humble yet enduring material. Speculative interpretations extend even further. Some have suggested that the production marks were intended as ritual tools, ensuring that the figure carried power, authority, or protection. Others argue that the marks may have been part of a proto-writing system, a means of encoding information within the craft itself, intelligible only to those initiated into Nok society. Could the figures have functioned as both spiritual objects and repositories of artisanal knowledge, blending the sacred and the practical in ways that are now lost to time? The Nok terracotta production marks are, in many ways, a dialogue across centuries. They remind us that human creativity has always sought to encode knowledge in both overt and subtle ways. Unlike monumental stone, these clay figures were portable, personal, and intimate. Yet their production marks hint at a sophisticated social and cognitive framework. How much information, ritual significance, or symbolic meaning remains hidden within these small impressions? And what might these marks reveal about the organization, beliefs, and technical mastery of the Nok people, a society whose voice we hear faintly through clay, but whose full story remains tantalizingly beyond reach? As we study these marks, tracing fingers over lines and impressions etched long ago, we are reminded that human ingenuity manifests not only in grand monuments or written records, but also in subtle, almost invisible traces. The Nok terracotta production marks endure as evidence of a culture capable of abstraction, planning, and symbolic thought. They challenge us to consider how knowledge, craft, and ritual intertwine, and to wonder what other secrets, encoded in the humblest of materials, may still lie buried in the earth, waiting to illuminate the richness of human history, the Nazca Mummies. From the sprawling deserts and ancient terracotta workshops of central Nigeria, our journey now takes us across the continent and over the Pacific to the arid plains of southern Peru, where the Nazca Desert stretches, pale and sun-scorched, toward distant mountain ranges. Amid this harsh landscape, famed for its immense geoglyphs that trace the earth like cryptic messages, an even more perplexing discovery has emerged: the so-called Nazca Mummies. These remains, shrouded in both mystery and controversy, present an unsettling glimpse into a culture that seems to defy the conventional boundaries of biology, ritual, and history. The discovery sites are remote, isolated valleys and small burial platforms, often near ceremonial or residential ruins associated with the Nazca culture, which flourished between 100 BCE and 800 CE. The mummies themselves are unlike anything seen in traditional Andean archaeology. Unlike the familiar bundles of human remains prepared for the afterlife, these specimens exhibit unusual anatomical features: elongated skulls, reduced digits, and an overall morphology that challenges conventional understanding of human physiology. The preservation is extraordinary, aided by the desert's arid conditions, yet their very existence raises profound questions about identity, origin, and intention. Mainstream scientific assessment initially approached these finds with caution. Some researchers argue that the elongation of skulls could result from cranial deformation, a ritual practice documented among several Andean cultures. Others suggest that the anomalies in limb and finger proportions may be the result of natural variation, disease, or post-mortem alteration. Yet, the combination of features, consistently present across multiple specimens, and the apparent sophistication of mummification techniques make purely natural explanations seem incomplete. How could a single culture, remarkable for its artistic and engineering accomplishments in the desert, have developed such uniform anatomical differences in its dead? Or are we witnessing evidence of something more extraordinary? The methods of preservation themselves invite contemplation. Each body is wrapped and treated with oils, resins, and textiles that indicate not only ritual care, but an advanced understanding of environmental conditions and decay prevention. The positioning of the bodies, sometimes seated, sometimes supine, with ceremonial artifacts, mirrors traditional Nazca funerary customs, but with subtle differences. Were these mummies intended as elite burial objects, sacred intermediaries, or perhaps participants in a spiritual or societal experiment whose purpose has been lost to time? Adding to the enigma are the patterns of placement. Some mummies have been found near or beneath geoglyphs, the colossal lines and figures etched into the desert floor. Could there have been a symbolic or practical relationship between the living landscape and the dead? Were these mummies aligned with solar, lunar, or planetary events, much like the stones of Nabta Playa or the Phaistos Disc's spiral symbolism? The desert, harsh and unyielding, may have functioned as a theater in which the Nazca orchestrated their understanding of life, death, and the cosmos. Speculative interpretations abound, yet none offer definitive answers. Some propose that these mummies represent hybridization or experimental practices, whether natural, genetic, or spiritual, reflecting beliefs that extended beyond the material world. Others suggest contact, direct or symbolic, with knowledge outside the Andean sphere, perhaps mediated through trade, migration, or mythic narrative. While such ideas remain contentious, the very existence of consistent anatomical anomalies combined with elaborate mummification forces us to consider how much about ancient human variation, ritual practice, and cultural imagination has been obscured by the passing centuries. The mummy's anatomical peculiarities are striking when examined in detail. Elongated crania suggest intentional modification, yet they also raise questions about cranial capacity, sensory perception, and cognitive implications. The digit anomalies, fewer fingers, differently proportioned hands, imply either genetic divergence or deliberate alteration. Were these features symbolic, practical, or aesthetic in nature? And what did they signify within the spiritual or social frameworks of the Nazca people? The meticulous preservation of these bodies, their placement within ritual contexts, and the enigmatic features they bear all point to a culture capable of sophisticated, intentional, and possibly experimental engagement with human form. Despite decades of study, controversy persists. Skeptics warn against sensationalized claims, noting that looting, modern tampering, and the incomplete archaeological record complicate interpretation. Yet even the most conservative assessments acknowledge that the mummies challenge expectations. They force us to confront anomalies in biology, ritual practice, and cultural expression that do not fit neatly into established frameworks. The desert, silent and enduring, guards these secrets jealously, offering glimpses but withholding full comprehension. The Nazca mummies, like the stone alignments of Nabta Playa or the coded impressions of the Nok terracottas, are traces of human intention embedded in material form. They provoke reflection on the limits of knowledge, the ingenuity of past cultures, and the mysteries that endure at the intersection of life, death, and belief. Were these mummies representatives of a distinct lineage, ritualized creations designed to embody spiritual concepts, or something else entirely? And what does their existence reveal about the breadth of human imagination, the boundaries of mortality, and the persistence of mystery in even the most studied archaeological landscapes? As we step back from the arid valleys and gaze upon the desert floor, the Nazca mummies remain a haunting enigma. They invite us to contemplate what has been lost, what has been preserved, and what may yet be revealed beneath shifting sands. In their silent presence, we are reminded that human history is not always linear, predictable, or fully comprehensible. Some stories, encoded in flesh, bone, and ritual, resist explanation, challenging us to imagine and to wonder at the many layers of knowledge, intention, and mystery that lie hidden in the deserts, hills, and ruins of our world.